Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and around the world from California and wherever you're watching. This is the Quarantine Theater Company. I am your host, Travis, tonight, and we will be doing the classic Planet of the Apes, the 1968 version. Yes. Today, these are my players tonight, and here are the starting lineups. Starting off with the one carrying the most weight is Karina, who will be scene description, child, Landon, Ape Guard, first chimp, and Ape Guard, which I put twice because that's just me. And we have and Marco playing Zira, first hunter, nurse, Galen, and minister. We also have Rudy. Rudy playing Cornelius, Maximus, President Lucius, first usher, second chimp. And I put nurse twice again because I don't know. Anyway,
Who
and
do you
we
want to
got.
be nurse?
Oh, I'll figure that out during the reading. It's not
Okay.
till later. But we got playing Dr. Zaius. We got Logan. Welcome, Logan. And I will be playing George Taylor. Yes, I am Travis. And in the time I have spoken, the spacecraft, the Icarus, aka the Liberty One, has taken off and it is traveling towards its destination. So, Karina, let's go to that destination.
Okay. All right. Planet of the Apes by Michael Wilson, based on the novel La Planeta des Singes by Pierre Boulle, shooting script May 5th, 1967. For educational purposes only. Fade in. Oh, crap. Sorry, my script froze.
All good.
Okay. Exterior constellation of Orion, night. Stars glitter like diamonds on black velvet backdrop of space. The bell of Orion is center screen, but much nearer and larger than ever seen by earthbound astronomer. A speck of light appears in the lower left corner of the screen. No spaceship can be seen, but only a glowworm, a solidarity spermatozoa, gliding through the room of the universe. Over this, we hear the voice of an astronaut. He is concluding a report.
So ends my last signal until we reach our destination. We are now on automatic, a mere 105 light years from our base, and at the mercy of computers. I've tucked my crew in for the long sleep, and I'll rejoin them presently.
Here, cabin of spaceship, establishing shot night. The cabin is neither cramped nor spacious, but about the size of the president's cabin in Air Force One. In the immediate foreground is a console of digital dials and switches flanked by 4 chairs. Only one of the chairs is occupied. The astronaut's back is to the camera. There is a ladder amidships which lead to an escape hatch. The after dart of the cabin is obscured in darkness. We hear the music of a Mozart sonata emanating from a phonograph of stereotype. The astronaut is speaking into a microphone.
Within the hour, we shall complete the 6th month of our flight from Cape Kennedy. By our time, that is.
He pauses, looking up at 2 large clocks on cabin wall. One clock is marked self-time, but instead of 12 numerals, it has 24. One of the needles is moving very slowly. The other clock is labeled Earth time, and its units, like those of a tachymeter, are given by hundreds and thousands. The largest needle of this clock makes 1 revolution every second. Over this we hear.
But according to Dr. Heslin's theory of time in a vehicle traveling at close to the speed of light, old Mother Earth has aged a few thousand years since our departure. Well, we've scarcely aged at all.
Close on astronaut. This is Taylor. He wears simple dungarees, or Churchill suit, and comfortable boots. He seems calm and pensive. Extracting the butt of a cigar from the breast pocket of his dungarees, he lights it, then continues.
Maybe so. This much is probable. The men who sent us on this journey have long since been moldering in forgotten graves. And those, if any, who read this message are of a different breed. Hopefully a better one.
He begins to roll up his left sleeves.
I leave the 20th century without regret. Who was it? Marshall said modern man is the missing a link between the ape and the human being.
He removes a cigar from his mouth. turns to look out through one of the portholes in the astral night.
One final thought. Nothing scientific, purely personal. Seen from up here, everything looks different. Time bends, space is boundless. It squashes a man's ego. He begins to feel like there's no more than a mountain in the eye of eternity, and he is nagged by a question that, half if anything, will greet us at the end of a man's first journey to a star. Are we to believe that throughout these thousands of galaxies, these millions of stars, only one, that speck of solar dust we call Earth, has grazed or cursed by human life? I have to doubt it.
He extracts a hypodermic needle from his breast pocket and injects it into the veins of his forearm. He continues speaking.
That's about all. I wonder if man, that marvel of the universe, that glorious paradox who has sent me to the unknown, still make war against his brother and lets his neighbors' children starving?
Tyler withdraws the hypodermic needle from his vein and secures it in a drawer of the console.
Well then, Earthmen, a missing link salutes you. Bless you, my descendants.
Taylor snaps out the cigar butt and places it in the drawer beside the hypodermic. Then, flickering a switch, cut off the Mozart, he rises and looks up again at the clock marked time. The longest needle of this clock now makes nearly 2 revolutions per second. The shortest needle points to the number 2105. Oh, shit. Eternal cabin tracking with Taylor. Space scientists have presumably solved the problem of weightlessness, where Taylor walks the short distance from the console to the after section without particular effort. Camera follows him, and we can now see 4 glass capsules or caskets in the rear of the cabin. Taylor looks down at them. Several shots, the 4 caskets from Taylor's point of view. One of them is open. The other 3 are occupied by astronauts, Dodge, Landon, and Stewart. They too wear dungarees and boots. Dodge and Landon are 30-ish, clean-shaven, American's finest. Stewart is a handsome young man. Woman. Her hair pops short. Their eyes are closed and they do not appear to be breathing. Yet no undertaker could make them so alive. Another angle, favoring Taylor. He grasps the handling of his own casket and slowly pulls himself into it. Continuing silence. Camera moves in as Taylor dulls the glass lid shut and secures it. He adjusts 2 dials inside the capsule and lies back, buckling his safety belt. Camera moves into a close-up of Taylor. His eyes are open. He seems serene, even enraptured. Note, credits will... Oh, do you want me to read the note part?
No, you can pass that.
Oh, okay. Series of shots of distant globe miniature. We see a strange and distant planet. At first, the globe occupies but a small area of the screen, but with each new view, it comes closer and looms larger as if observed from a spaceship in a spiraling orbit of descent. The topography of the planet bears little resemblance of our own. Much of it is obscured by cloud cover. Even more of it appears to be crafted desert of reddish hue. We can, however, make out a few narrow green belts and a patch of blue water. In the final shots of this sequence, we see the strange planet as it would be observed from a spacecraft plummeting from 20,000 feet to 1,000 feet. It appears that the ship will fall into a vast lake surrounded by soaring sandstone pinnacles. The water is blue back to the pinnacles vermilion. This is the Lake Powell location at Lone Walk. Interior spaceship full shot. 4 empty pilot's seats are seen in foreground. The 4 glass caskets in the back. We hear the rhythmic beat of the warning signal, a rush of wind as in raptured descent, and perhaps the roar of retrojets. Then a great crash as the craft hits water. The whole ship shudders of impact. Loose equipment falls on the cabin floor. Camera moves down the cabin aisles as the ship begins to roll in the water and holds on the 4 glass caskets. There are 3 loud metallic clicks as the glass domes of the casket swing open automatically. Close on Taylor. He now has a full beard. His eyes come open, instantly alert. He rises to a sitting position, glazing across at Dodge and Landon from Taylor's point of view. They too awaken and sit up, staring at Taylor. They too are bearded.
You all right?
They nod. Back to Taylor close shot. He glances at the casket beside his own.
Stuart! Stuart!
Close shot the fourth casket. Its dome remains unopened. The young woman is a skeleton in a Churchill suit. Reaction shot. 3 astronauts, Dodge and Landon, have joined Taylor and stare at the grinning skull of their dead comrade. A low, descending hum of equipment is heard. Simultaneously, the lights begin to fade. A moment later, they brighten, but not as much as before.
There goes our primary power. We're on auxiliary.
A slight crackling sound is heard. Taylor turns quickly away. Reverse angle the forward cabin. A trickle of water has begun to seep through the Rapture seam in the cabin. Taylor darts to a porthole and peers cut. Long shot, what Taylor sees. Water. The porthole is no more than 6 inches above the line. In the distance, we discern the shoreline of red desert.
We're in the soup. We're sinking.
Interior cabin, full shot. The leak in the seam begins a growing spray of water. Taylor turns away from the porthole, calling.
Dodge, read the atmosphere.
Dodge moves instantly to the ladder beneath the escape hatch and mounts it. Taylor stumbles down the aisle of the rolling ship towards the console and addresses Landon, who is still staring at Stuart's skeleton.
Landon, send a last signal.
What signal?
To Earth, that we've landed.
As Landon lurches towards the communication equipment in the foreground. Exterior, Tim Strange planet. Long panoramic shot, late afternoon. We are looking at a lifeless desert of sandstone and pinnacles. There is no sign of vegetation anywhere. Camera pans down to a body of water that could be the bay of the inland sea. The deep blue of the sea contrasts sharply to the red sands of the shoreline. Camera holds on the stricken spaceship, wallowing like a beach whale 100 yards offshore. The portholes of the craft are beneath the water, and only its roof and its tail fin of its tail assembly are visible. The red-hot skin of the ship vaporizes the water around it. Suddenly, a snorkel-like tube sprouts from the escape hatch, which is located amidships. Interior cabin, closed escape hatch. Dodge, standing halfway up the ladder, has fastened a kit of gauges to the end of the snorkel tube. He reads the dial, removes the kit, sniffs the air in the tube, and then, taking a deep breath, announces,
"It's breathable."
Okay, blow the hatch before we lose auxiliary power.
Dodge reaches for a control mechanism near the escape hatch. Close on Taylor and Landon. The spray of water coming through the Rapture seams is increasing. The lights dim again, and the sound of the warning signals fade. While Landon fiddles with the radio, Taylor tries to get the tape recorder rolling, but all we hear are scrambles and unintelligible noises. It's no use. There she goes.
Forget it. Abandoned ship.
Wider angle, tip cabin. The escape hatch is now open. Taylor darts over to the ladder and passes a folded life raft up Dodge. When Landon reaches the ladder, Taylor hands him 2 neatly packed rucksacks, and Landon climbs through the escape hatch. Taylor is about to follow with a 3rd rucksack, then turns and crosses the cabin for a last look at the 2 clocks from Taylor's point of view. Both clocks have stopped. The red needle of the clock labeled self-time rests on the numeral 18. The red needle of the clock marked Earth time rests on the numeral 3975. Exterior top of spacecraft, medium shot. Dodge inflates the raft with the cartilage of compressed air and tosses it into the water. He and Landon jump into the water and climb onto the raft as Taylor emerges from the hatch. Taylor slips into the water and climbs onto the raft. He and Landon begin to paddle towards shore while Dodge immediately opens another kit and takes a sample of water. Close on the men in the raft.
It's briny, but 25% salinity. Yeah, it's near the saturation point.
She's still sinking. The spaceship from their point of view. Only the radio antenna and the tip of the tail fin remains visible. Going. The craft vanishes beneath the water. Close on the men in the raft. Dodge is still busy with his kit. Landon is still looking back, but Taylor doesn't bother to turn his head. Gone.
Okay, we're here to stay.
Another angle, moving with the raft. They gaze at the fading sandstone battlements as they near the shore. Well, where are we? Have any notion, Skipper?
We're some 320 light years from Earth on an unnamed planet in orbit around the star of the constellation of Orion. That could be Bellatrix.
The sun, from their point of view, low on the horizon, even though a dense envelope of dust particles.
Say again, Dodge?
It's too red for Bellatrix.
Back to the astronauts en route. Landon glances skeptically at Taylor. You didn't have time to check the tapes, so you don't really know, do you? Oh, shit. What went wrong? We weren't programmed to land in the water.
The question is, Landon, it's not so much where we are as when we are.
We've had a nice snooze, so let's start earning all our back pay.
Wider angled the beach. As the three astronauts step out the shallow water, pull the raft ashore.
Take your soil test, Dodge. I'll check the equipment.
Dodge moves inland in about 10 yards, removes a small hand drill from his belt, extends the rod of the drill 3 feet, and begins to take some suboil samples. Taylor begins to examine the contents of the 3 wet sacks. Landon sits down on the beach, hands around his knees, gazing moodily at the sunken spaceship. During this and succeeding scenes, we sense that Dodge's obsession with scientific inquiry leaves him immune to fear. Landon is possibly more creative, and certainly more human, for he has many fears to control. While Taylor, detached, cool, and misanthropic, is something of an enigma.
Got your sensors?
Yo!
Ginger counter?
You my Geiger counter? Yo.
Yes, that one. Thank you, Dodge. 1 pistol, 24 rounds ammo, 2 medical kit, 1 camera, 1 TX9. We've had enough food and water for 3 days.
But how long is a day?
Good question. Landon, check your communications kit.
Another angle, flavoring Landon. He seems not to have heard.
Landon, join the expedition.
Sorry. I was thinking of Stuart. What do you suppose happened?
Air leak. Died in her sleep.
You don't seem very cut about it.
A little late for a wake. She's been dead nearly a year.
Then we've been away from Earth for 18 months.
By our time. You've turned gray.
Landon involuntarily touches the gray hair of his temple as Taylor adds light.
Should I say red? Apart from that, you look pretty chipper for a man who's 2,031 years old. I read the clocks. They bear out Heslin's hypothesis. We've been away from Earth for 2,000 years, give or take a decade. Still can't accept it, huh?
You know it.
Because time has wiped out everyone and everything you cared for. They're dust.
Prove it. If we can't get back, it's still just a theory.
It's a fact, Landon. Buy it. You'll sleep better.
Dodge enters scene. A handful of reddish sand dribbles through his fingers.
Nothing will grow here. Just a trace of hydrocarbons, and most of the nitrogen is locked into nitrates.
Any signs of dangerous ionization?
No.
Okay. If there's no life here, we've got just 72 hours to find it. That's when the groceries run out.
He picked up one of the rucksacks and put it on. The other follows suit.
Which direction?
That way.
Any particular reason?
None at all.
He moves out. Dodge follows. Cameron pan with them. They have gone only a few paces with Taylor, look back over his shoulder and halts. Reverse angle, featuring Landon. Landon is squatting in the sand, sticking something in the soil. It is a small American flag, the size of a handkerchief. Reverse angle, featuring Taylor and Dodge. Mirth bubbles up in Taylor's throat. He explodes with a wild laughter. He is still laughing as they move out. This is off to Dawn Shot. The astronauts trek. They descend from the plateau. Astronauts continue march. Across the top of the hills, there suddenly runs a line of fire. They move across the terrain. Jagged bolts of lightning flash across the sky, but bring no rain, and thunderclaps sound like heavy artillery. Pick this up to another part of the canyon. Several huge boulders are dissolved, and three astronauts run wildly to escape the falling rocks. When the avalanche ends, they sprawl up lifeless sands, breathing heavily and drenched with sweat, surrounded by numerous boulders. Tyler looks about him.
Everyone all right? Everybody all right?
Murmurs of exits from Dodge and Landon. Taylor rummages through a limp rucksack, comes up with some empty food cartons, rummages again, coming up with a cigar butt.
Water check.
Dodge takes a plastic canteen from another rucksack and inspects it.
8 ounces.
Dodge lies back and looks up at the sky.
It doesn't add up. There's a mantle of dust around this planet, and yet it's as humid as a jungle. Thunder and lightning, and yet no rain. Cloud cover every night, and that strange luminosity. Yet there's no moon.
Landon also looks up in the sky. If only we can get a fix.
What would you learn? I've told you where you are and when you are.
Taylor, quit writing him.
You're more than 300 light years from your precious planet. Your loved ones have been dead and forgotten for 20 centuries. Even if you could get back, they'd think you were something that fell out of a tree.
All right.
There's only one reality left. We're here and it is now. You get a hold of that and hang on tight, or you might as well be dead.
I'm prepared to die. Taylor turns to Dodge, throws his hands up his.
He's prepared to die. Doesn't that make you misty? Chalk up another victory for the human spirit.
Dodge rises and moves off, either embarrassed by his clip or unwilling to hear it again. Taylor, cigars claps between his teeth, spins towards Landon.
Straighten me out on something. Why'd you come along at all? You volunteered. Why? I'll tell you. They nominated you for the big one, and you couldn't turn it down, not without losing your all-American stand-in.
I'm off me, will you?
And the glory, don't forget that. There's a life-size bronze statue of you somewhere. It's probably green by now. Nobody can read the nameplate. But never let it be said we forget our heroes.
Taylor, I'm telling you.
Oh, and one last item. Immortality. You wanted to go on forever. Well, you damn near made it. Except for Dodge and me. You lived longer than anybody. And with Stewart dead, it looks like we're the last one of the strain. You got what you wanted, kid. How does it taste?
Silence. Taylor lies down, spent of his venom, pillowing his head on a rucksack. Okay, you read me well enough. Why can't I read you?
Don't bother.
Dodge, he's not like me at all, but he makes sense. Held walk naked into a live volcano if he thought he could learn something no other men knew. I understand why he's here, but you're no seeker. You're negative.
But I'm not prepared to die.
I'd like to know why not. You thought life on Earth was meaningless. You despised people. So what did you do? You ran away. Taylor's eyes are closed. He is silent for a moment. When he speaks, his tone is soft, reflective.
No, not quite. I'm a bit of a seeker myself, but my dreams are a lot emptier than yours. I can't get rid of the idea that somewhere in the universe there must be a creature superior to man.
Another angle featuring Dodge, who has been wandering around studying the boulders and the barren soil. Taylor and Landon can be seen in the background. Dodge spots something and squats down to examine it. Close up, what Dodge sees. It is a tiny desert flower no more than an inch high. Close up of Dodge. His eyes light up as he calls.
Taylor, over here.
Close group shot, angling down. As Taylor and Landon hurry over to kneel down on either side of Dodge, the astronauts hover over the tiny flower like three magi perceiving in the infant deliverer.
Life.
He digs gently around the roots of the planet with a small instrument.
Where there's one, there's another. And another, and another.
Let's find them all.
Sunset shot. End of the tech. As the astronauts start from the canyon to the Tamarisk area. Absolute desolation. The astronauts start down the canyon. Astronauts cast a huge shadow. As they move across the terrain, they jump shot as they jump across a gap. Thunder and lightning again. They move down. They march across the crazy canyon overlook. Reaction shots of the astronauts. Series of shots of descendants of the astronauts down sheer face of the canyon. For a brief moment, several creatures appear. We cannot identify the species. Quick resolve to exterior a dry wash. Close-up group shot. Blooming terrace border a dry spread bed. Taylor and Lennon hover over Dodge, who is probing the soil with his drill. These dungarees and faces are caked with dust.
It's a stream bed, no doubt about it. Bone dry.
Lennon straightens up and looks off, startled by something he sees. Look! Long shot, a cliff beyond the Tamarisk. With the astronauts in the foreground in the distance of the skyline, we make out a long row of wooden crosses. Some animal or vegetable matter appears to be tied to the crosses. Scarecrows?
Let's take a look.
Taylor plunges into the thickness of the Tamarisk, followed by Dodge and Lennon. Their views of the cliffs is momentarily obscured. Camera holds on the distant crosses. For an instant, only 3 creatures again appear on the skyline near the crosses. They then vanish. Reverse angle, the astronauts. As they emerge from the Tamarisk thicket near to the base of the cliffs, they halt and look up at the crosses, angling up from the astronauts' point of view. We can now see the pelts of unrecognizable animals have been bound to the crosses and thus mounted in a long row, seem to make a boundary or served as a warning. The living bipeds are no longer visible. Back to the astronauts. Dodge and Lennon are still looking up at the strange crosses, but Taylor is scanning the terrain at the base of the cliff. The sound of rushing water can be heard.
Never mind the damn scarecrows.
He breaks into a run, camera panning with him as he moves towards a leap in the face of the cliffs. Moving shot, Dodge and Landon. Agonized with thirst, they follow Taylor. Flash shot, top of the cliffs. For an instant, we see the bipeds again, moving in the same direction. There it is in the cliffs, featuring Taylor. He scrambles up in the Walkstern Gorge and looks off at the terrain beyond. Exterior waterfall. The cascade is not spectacular, but the vegetation around it is definitely lush. Close up of Taylor, his parched lips break into a smile. Quick was off to exterior waterfall and pool, full shot. Dave. The cascade has formed a cool and inviting pool. Thick foliage grows to the very edge. Dodge is on his hands and knees, testing the liquid with his kit. The others wait expectantly.
It's loaded with minerals. Safe.
Without further ado, Landon ducks his face into the pool. Dodge scoops up the water with his hands and drinks. Taylor follows suit. Can we take a dip?
Okay.
Landon and Dodge immediately remove their boots, strip down, and plunge into the pool. But Taylor does not yet disrobe. Alert and curious, he strolls along the banks of the pool, looking around. Dodge and Landon swimming. Taylor, as he briefly looks around, he starts taking off his shirt. Dodge and Landon, as they arrive at the opposite shore. Beam shot far side of the pool, as Landon sees something on shore. Taylor in the water as he swims across. Hey, Taylor, look at this. Dodge and Taylor climb out of the pool and squat beside Landon. Close shot, what they see. The print of a large 5-toed foot is clearly visible in the wet sand. Group shot, the 3 astronauts. Taylor rises and walks slowly towards the underbrush, scanning the ground for other sports. Cuts to the other side of the pool, full panic shot. Our view of the astronauts beyond the cascade in the background is partially obscured by the broad leaf foliage directly in front of the camera, which pans slowly away from the waterfall and holds on the astronauts' clothing, the edge of the pool. Suddenly and inexplicably, a pair of dungarees slithers away into the underbush. A few seconds pass. Now a pair of bronze and brawny shoulders fill the screen, blocking our view. Reverse angle, close on a human's face in heavy foliage. Or is it human? The hair is matted, the face bearded, the jaw and the orbital rim prominent. Another angle at the edge of the pool. A brown, thick-fingered hand appears from behind the foliage and it plucks at a boot. The boot vanishes. Dodge is standing near Taylor and looking back at the spot where they left their clothing. Suddenly, he sees Taylor's arm and points silently at the far banks of the pool. What they see. Another pair of dungarees slithers into the underbrush and disappears. Reverse angle. Full planning shot, the astronauts. Led by Taylor, they dive back into the pool and swim to the other side. Emerging from the water, they look around in bewilderment. Taylor makes hand signals to indicate absolute silence and awakening. The three astronauts fan out and move cautiously into the jungle or rainforest. Exterior jungle or rainforest. Several shots moving into the astronaut. Little sunlight penetrates this dense vegetation. These shots are intercut with what the astronauts see. Fleeting forms of yet unidentified, trembling foliage, brown shadows against a green background. Exterior a clean clearing, favoring the three astronauts, who stop at the edge of the clearing, startled by what they see. A number of primitive bipeds, male and female, scarcely visible behind trees and bushes on the other side of the clearing. Here a face, there's a portion of the head and torso. Throughout this sequence, the primitives are never seen clearly or at close range. Back to the astronauts. Reacting, they speak in whispers. My God, they look almost human.
There's a herd of them.
Show them we're friendly.
Camera pulls back as Taylor advances a few steps into the clearing, extending his empty hands and beaming like a politician.
Greetings!
Reverse the strange creatures from Taylor's point of view. There are perhaps a dozen of them. They shrink back as Taylor advances, hostile, frightened, or both. Now we see that some of them are clutching articles of the astronauts' clothing and equipment. Taylor stops, stares at them glumly.
No cigar.
Try telling them our names. Taylor grimaced at Landon.
Well, if they were looking for an icebreaker, listen, folks.
More shrieking back by the frightened primitives.
I'm afraid they aren't having any.
A series of flash shots, the jungle or rainforest. A pistol goes off from a deafening crash, and the primitive creatures scattered in a panicked fight. After a while, quiet returns to the jungle. Here, jungle path, the astronauts. They examine the remnants of their clothing and equipment and start to don whatever is able to be worn. Taylor puts on what remains of a ripped pair of trousers. Dodge starts to rise from the remnants of the kit. It is torn shelter half. Landon, like Taylor, has the remains of his pants.
They didn't leave much, did they?
Shall we follow them?
Haven't much choice.
As they walk off the jungle path, dissolves to exterior a grove of fruit trees. They need not to be cultivated grove. A few trees, peach or apricot or avocado, it matters not, grows wild in a pleasant glade, nor is the grove extensive. The three astronauts sit under a tree in foreground. The primitive sits under a clump of trees some 50 yards away. Each camp is feeding and whirling, watching the others. In the distance beyond the fruit trees is an open, grassy plain cultivated field. The primitives, from Landon's point of view, they too are sitting under a tree, munching fruit. There are no more than a dozen altogether. Back to the astronauts, close group shot.
Well, at least they haven't tried to bite us.
Blessed are the vegetarians.
The other camp, featuring a young woman, squatting on her haunches, eating fruit, gazing back at Taylor. Her hair is long, black, her skin nut brown, her face hauntingly, lovingly, and hauntingly stupid. This is Nova. Back to the astronauts. Landon looks screen at the primitives. We got off to the wrong start.
You're our optimist. Look at the bright side. If that's the best there is around here, in 6 months we'll be running this planet.
Look!
The primitives, their point of view, they appear to be agitated, although neither we nor the astronauts have yet heard or seen any cause for alarm. Primitives get to their feet, sniffing and listening. Close group shot, the astronauts. Puzzled and alarmed by the primitives' behavior, they too get on their feet. Think they'll attack us? Taylor turns and looks back. The distant jungle from which they emerge, there is no sign of life. Long panning shot, the primitives. They suddenly run literally across the grove, heading back towards their jungle. A rumble becomes out of the sound of the hoofprints. Very long shot, the jungle or the forest. 12 horsemen suddenly emerge from the trees, riding abreast at a canter, like a squadron or cavalry, about to charge. The horses look huge, so do the riders, but at this distance we cannot identify them. Long panning shot. Cuts off from their natural habitat. They reverse direction and flee towards the tall grasses of savanna. Long shot, the riders, with a battle cry, they break into a gallop. The hunt is on. Close group shot, 3 astronauts, stupefied, frozen in place. Long shot, the riders, coming closer. We hear a rifle shot, then a flurry of shots, medium shot. A bullet bangs up to the fruit trees above their heads. They run, camera panning with them as they race towards the tall grass in deep background. A series of flash shots, the hunt of the savannah. As the horsemen close and the creatures fleeing on foot. Medium close-up of the rider. His rein is in, rises his rifle and fires. For the first time, we see that he is a guerrilla. He wears a simple material uniform, trousers and boots. Flash shot, dodge. Running through the high grass, he is shot in the back and falls. He drops at the side of his fallen comrades. Taylor drops at the side of his fallen comrades. Close 2 shots, angling down to Dodge. As Taylor rolls him over, Dodge is dead. Wider angle shot, the savannah, featuring a line of beaters. The beaters are all guerrillas. They carry long sticks and nets, and their task is to flush out the terrified primitives cowering in the tall grass. A series of shots, the hunters and the hunted. Landon flees from one rider only to be cut off by another. He stumbles and his rearing stallion tramples him. The third mounted gorilla flings a net over a running female. She is hopelessly entangled. This is Nova. Landon lies unconscious on the grassy plain, an ugly gash on his forehead. Tyler crawls through tall grass on his hands and knees. A rider crosses his path without seeing him. The beaters close in on Taylor, blocking the escape route. Taylor changes direction and decides to run for it. Serious savannah, panning with Taylor. Bent low, he flees through the tall grass. A shot rings out. Taylor falls. Close in on Taylor. Lying on his back, his fingers go to his throat. Blood appears between his fingers. He opens his mouth in pain, but no sound comes forth as Taylor sinks into unconsciousness. Resolves to exterior grove, full shot, the huntress day. The hunting party has reassembled here beneath the fruit trees. Some of the guerrillas had dismounted. Others are still on horseback. In the middle distance is a crude horse-drawn wagon. The sides and top of the wagon form a wire cage. 3 captive males and one female are visible within the cage. Dodge and Landon are nowhere to be seen. 2 guerrilla porters enter scene, dragging a male human corpse by the ankles, and 2 bears enter scene with a living burden on a long carrying pole. Taylor dangles from the pole, held aloft by the bounds around his wrists and ankles. Camera pans with the 2 gorillas as they dump Taylor into the wagon and close to the tailgate. Close on Taylor within wagon cage. His throat is smeared with blood. His eyelids flutter as he regains consciousness. Close shot, what Taylor sees. 3 primitive male bound hands and foot. They seem docile in captivity. The female Nova clasps Bound's wrists around her bound ankles and gazes blankly at Taylor. There's a jolt of movement as the wagon gets underway. Close in on Tyler. With a great effort, he raises himself on one elbow and looks from the cage. Trucking with the wagon, what Taylor sees. A guerrilla hunter stands over a dead man, one foot planted the chest of his kill, and his rifle butt resting on the abdomen. Facing him to the other gorilla with an old-fashioned camera on a tripod.
Smile!
He faints. Fade out, fade in. Interior surgery angling down the 2 operating table net. The surgery is dimly lit. If possible, we should be aware of the source of illumination. Taylor lies strapped to the near table. He appears to be unconscious. The young female captive, Nova, is strapped to the table beside him. She's unconscious. Taylor is receiving a direct blood transfusion from her. Hovering over Taylor are a nurse and surgeon named Galen. Both are chimpanzees. Galen wears a bloody surgical apron, the nurse a white smock. Galen is removing a filthy bandage from Taylor's neck. A door behind them opens and Dr. Zira, an animal psychologist, enters. She too is a chimpanzee and wears a smock like the nurses.
Which one was wearing the strange clothes? Which one was wearing the strange clothes?
That's you. That is you, Rudy. Okay.
Which one was wearing the strange clothes?
Him.
Zira looks down at Taylor.
Will he live?
I don't know. This beast lost a lot of blood.
Galen paws through a tray of surgical instruments. The equipment is obsolete, and the room untidy, like that of a callous small-town veterinarian.
There's no probe here. Find one. Yes, sir.
She exits. Zira runs a forefinger across a dusty table. Her voice is soft and well modulated.
This place is dirty, Doctor.
These animals are dirty, Doctor. They stink, and they carry communicable diseases. Why aren't they cleaned up before they're brought here?
Close two shots, Taylor and Nova. His eyes come open. Over this we hear.
You don't sound happy in your work.
I'm nothing more than a vet in this laboratory.
Taylor briefly turns his head and looks at Nova. She returns his gaze with an unchanged, empty stare. We sense that Taylor realizes his blood is flowing through his veins. Over this we hear.
You promised to speak to Dr. Zayas about me.
I did, but you know how he looks down his nose at chimpanzees.
Taylor rolls his eyes towards the apes. Weak as he is, we see his astonishment as hearing them talk. Back to the group operating table. As the nurse re-enters with a probe and hands it to Dr. Galen, who protests to Zira.
But the quota system's been abolished. You made it. Why can't I?
What do you mean, made it? I'm an animal psychologist, that's all. We don't have any authority.
You do pretty well when it comes to getting space and equipment.
That's because Dr. Zayas realizes our work has value.
Hmm.
The foundations of scientific brain surgery are being laid right here in studies of cerebral function in these animals.
They're still dirty. And their bite is septic. Look at that.
He shows Zira infected teeth marks on the back of his left hand.
Hold his head.
The nurse complies, gripping Taylor the skull in both hands. Galen leans down and begins to probe the throat wound. Taylor passes out. Solves to interior a row of cages, animal laboratory, track and shot babe. The cages are no larger than the small jail cells. There are 4 of them. Bars, not walls, divided the cages, so that all 4 are visible. Each of the first 3 cages is occupied by a primitive male. At the moment, the first 2 are quiet, dozing or scratching medically. The third occupant is regarding in a half dozen brightly colored hollow wooden boxes, or blocks, of varying size and proportions on the floor of his cage. He is trying to stack the boxes in such a way as to reach a banana dangling from a cord 12 feet overhead. He has correctly selected the first 2 large, sturdy blocks for his tower under the banana, but the tall third block is too unstable and its small base to support the broad-based fourth block. Close Taylor. Taylor, looking much stronger, sits on a pile of dirty straw in the 4th cage. There is a clean bandage around his throat. He watches the block building primitive with the contemptuous amusement. Both the 3rd and 4th blocks tumble into the floor when the predator tries to mount his tower. He stands there, staring dully at the scattered blocks, then up at the unattainable banana. The laboratory. A door at the end of the aisle opens and a gorilla named Julius enters. Dressed as in a keeper's uniform, he quickly closes the door, snatches up a broom, starts sweeping. Julius is oblivious late for work. Taylor struggles to his feet, moves to the bars of the cage, tries to call out. Taylor?
It's soundless, so he said it.
Hey, hey, Soundless.
Yeah, hey,
The three other primitives move towards the bars of their cages. Julius barks at them.
I don't think I casted Julius, so whoever wants it, go right to be my guest. Have a nice day.
simmer down. Simmer down. You, especially.
The third primitive goes back to stacking his blocks. Julius comes up to Taylor's cage, indicates a set of blocks thrown across its floor, extended his broom handle to whack the banana overhead.
Better give it a try, stupid. Unless you like going hungry.
He returns to his sweeping. Taylor glowers at him. A moment later, the door at the end of the aisle opens and Dr. Zira enters.
Good morning, Dr. Zira.
Good morning, Julius. How's our patient today?
No change. The minute you open the door, he goes into his act.
She starts down in the aisle towards Taylor's cage. He grabs the bars, awaiting anxiously. As she passes the second cage, the primitive in it shakes the bars, jumps up and down. His tongue is hanging out. Zira smiles, stops, digs in the pocket of her smock.
Well, what do we want this morning? Come on. What we want something? Speak. Come on. Come on, speak.
The primitive continues to jump up and down energetically. Zira takes a cube of sugar from her pocket, holds it up to inspection.
Oh, do we want some sugar, old timer?
The man eagerly sticks his hand through the bars. She drops the cube in his hands. He jams it into his mouth.
You could get hurt doing that, Doctor.
Oh, don't be silly. He's perfectly tame.
They'll all tame you until they take a chunk out of you.
Close shot, featuring Taylor, Zira, and Julius. Taylor starts to open his mouth as Zira comes up to the bar.
Well, Bright Eyes, is our throat feeling better?
And
Oh,
speak!
it still hurts, doesn't it? Still hurts, doesn't it?
See? He keeps pretending he can talk.
Taylor glares at Julius, slams the bars. Zira hurriedly takes a pen and notebook from the breast pocket of her smock and starts to scribble.
Do you see that? It's remarkable.
Huh.
Oh, he's trying to form words.
Well, you know what they say. Humans see, human do.
Taylor's staring in silent fascination at the open notebook. He starts mouthing, points at them.
Now what?
Taylor gestures for Zira to come close to the bars.
He seems to want something.
She advances tentatively towards the cage.
I'd be careful, Doctor.
Taylor suddenly reaches through the bars, tries to snatch the pen and notebook from Zira. Julius instantly jabs his broom handle through the bars, hitting Taylor in the ribs.
What did I tell you? Try that again, I'll break your arm.
Zero draws back, looking at Taylor in surprise. Close up on Taylor. His face is twisted in frustration. Over the door is heard opening, and Julia's voice, nervous, to Pharaoh.
Good morning, Your Excellency.
Boom shot the three apes from Taylor's point of view. Julius and Zira crosses a stout, imposing orangutan who has just entered the laboratory. Julius bows to him. This is Dr. Zayas. I jumped. Like the other apes, he wears a simple tunic and trousers, but his garments are of a costlier material, and several decorations are woven into the sash of his tunic.
Oh, Dr. Zayas, I'm so glad you can come. He's over here.
Zayas continues. Kate crosses with them to Taylor's cage. Beneath his austere manner, we sense tension, worry. Zira looks up at Taylor, her tone an appeal.
Bright Eyes, show him. Go ahead. Do your trick. Speak. Go on. Speak again. There, can you believe it? It looks like he's talking.
Yes, amusing. A man who acts like an ape.
Taylor turns to Zayas. Oh.
Dr. Zayas, I could have sworn he was answering you.
He shows a definite gift for mimicry.
Zira wriggles her fingers.
I wonder how he'll score on a Hopkins manual dexterity test.
His voice is quiet, but there's steel in it.
Look!
Taylor is frantically wiggling his fingers.
Oh, he's moving his fingers.
Of course, he saw you moving yours.
But perhaps he understood.
Close Taylor. He is bleeding silently as Zayas' voice is heard over the shot.
Man has no understanding, Dr. Zira. He can be taught a few simple tricks, nothing more.
I beg to disagree. According to my experiments...
Close Zayas. A warning burns out of his eyes as he stares at Taylor.
A word to the wise, Dr. Zira. Experimental brain surgery on those creatures is one thing. I'm all for it.
Close on Taylor. Fear clouds his eyes. Abruptly, he stops moving his lips. Me and the group. Zayas sees the effect the word has on Taylor. He turns to Zero, goes on, more detached tone.
But your behavioral studies are another matter entirely. To suggest that we can learn something about simian nature from a study of man is nonsense. Besides, men are a nuisance. They outgrow their own food supply in the forest and migrate to our green belts and ravage our crops. The sooner they are exterminated, the better.
He turns towards the door. A disappointed Zero follows him. Zayas looks back at Taylor before going out.
It's a question of simian survival.
Close up on Taylor. He stares after Zayas, then looks away, slumps to the floor. A pause. Then a voice is heard. Is this the one you wanted, Doctor?
Yes, thank you. Bright Eyes?
Taylor looked
Bright
up.
Eyes. I've got a present for you.
Another angle, the cage. Standing outside the cage, held on a leash by an ape guard, is Nova. She looked at Taylor without expression. Zira gestures at Julius.
Put her in with him.
Julius unlocked the cage door, leads Nova inside, removes her leash and collar. Taylor has gotten to his feet. Julius goes out, locking the door behind him. Nova hesitates, then slowly reaches out, takes Taylor's hand. Zira beams at them. Dissolves to Zero exercise and animal compound. It's nothing elaborate, of fence wire enclosed in a dirt yard. This compound is situated on the outskirts of the ape town, and the town is visible in the distance. There are about a dozen adult human captives within the enclosed, no more of a third of the female. Some of them trudge around the dusty yards like convicts in a penitentiary. Others squat against the sun-drenched walls. A big male suddenly runs into the fence and tries to climb it. Several guards, armed with whips and torches, immediately close in on him. The predator recoils in fear and feisty torch and rejoins the captive circle. Closer angle of the yard, featuring Taylor. He plods sullenly back and forth across the rear of the yard, occasionally glancing off towards the approaches to the compound. Nova is at his heels. He ignores her. Once again, he looks off, stops suddenly. Nova bumps into him. He turns impatiently, shoos her away, then looks off screen again. Zira and companion. Taylor's point of view. Zira can be seen approaching with a young chimpanzee, Dr. Cornelius. He wears a simple smock over his tunic and trousers. Cornelius glances surreptitiously around, cleverly takes Zira's hand.
Do you have to work tonight?
No.
Neither do I.
He gives her a quick peck on the cheek. Closer and Taylor. He drifts towards the fence, Nova behind him. He shouts Zira and Cornelius. They come up to the fence. Zira nods towards Taylor.
That's Bright Eyes, the one I was telling you about.
What's so special about him?
Watch. Hello, Bright Eyes. How's our throat today?
Taylor stares at her impassively, then looks around to that no guards are watching, hunkers down, begins to scratch in the dust. Nova extends unclean fingers to touch the bandage on his throat. Taylor flinches, pushes her away. Nova hand touches a bluish bruise on the inside of her own forearm, then searches for a similar bruise on Taylor's forearm.
Look, she remembers.
Remembers what?
The blood transfusion.
Zara, come on. You know they can't. Oh. Here comes number one.
Taylor looks up off screen, quickly rises. Another angle, the yard featuring Dr. Zayas, who is approaching the two scientists from deep down. Zayas is followed by a huge and much decorated gorilla, whom we recognize as the leader of the Hunt Club.
Something's bothering him. He's been prowling around the lab for the last 2 days. Good morning, Dr. Zayas. You know Dr. Cornelius, my fiancé?
Cornelius bows respectively. Zayas is patronizing, polite.
Ah, yes. The young ape with a shovel. I hear you're planning another archaeological expedition.
He shouted Taylor. He stepped back from the marks he made in the dust. He's watching Zayas with concern.
Yes, sir. If the Academy agrees.
The project will require my support, of course.
He aimed close shot, angling down on Taylor and Nova. Pretty male squats down to see what Taylor has marked on the ground. In letters a foot high, he has written, I can write. Nova, at once fluent and playful, erases the right with a bare foot. Taylor angrily flings her aside. This violence provokes the primitive male, who snares at Taylor and cuffs him. Over this we hear from a distance.
I hope I can count on it, sir.
A friendly warning, Cornelius. When you're digging for artifacts, don't bury your reputation.
Taylor slugs with a snarling male, who wades in, trying to bite him.
Guards!
Wider angle, the fight. Two guerrilla guards rush in and break up the fight. One of them lashes out with his whip. The other pokes his torch at Taylor. Its flame brushes his arm. Taylor opens his mouth, gives a silent yell of pain, shrinks back. Zira runs to the fence.
Stop! You've hurt him! Take them inside!
Prodding the Macreans with their torches, the two guards held them towards the doorway in the wall. Zira hurried round the side of the fence around off screen. Medium shot, says Cornelia, Hunt Club leader.
Cornelius, if you have a moment today, I'd like to discuss this expedition of yours in more detail.
Certainly, sir. I'll get my notes and come right over.
He exits hurriedly. The Hunt Club leader turns to Zaius.
I don't understand these animal psychologists. What's Dr. Zira trying to prove? That man can be domesticated.
The hunter growls. Zaius turns away and looks down at the dust underfoot. Just beyond the fence, we can make out the letters I can. Zaius extends foot, appears beneath the bottom wire of the fence. The foot wipes out the letters. Close up on Zaius. His face is a mask. Interior, Taylor's cage, medium shot day. He is slumped against the bars of the cell, gingerly touching a large reddening blotch on his arm. Julius watches him uncertainly from a few yards away. In the background, the outside door opens and Zira rushes in, hurriedly down the aisle.
What happened?
Those fools and their torches. Do you have any ointment?
I'll see.
He moves to the cabinet at the other end of the laboratory, rummages through some drawers. Medium shot, Zira's from Taylor's point of view. Zira comes up to Taylor's cage, studies him.
I told you what you'd get.
Right angle to include them all. Taylor scribbling furiously on a sheet of note paper. The guards move in, the club unraised.
Julius, don't. It doesn't matter.
Julius swings his club at Taylor's head. Taylor lifts his wide arm to ward off the blow, and the stick strikes him sharply in the hand. He drops the pen and notebook. The guard swings again, driving Taylor to the wall. Then Julius retrieves the stolen articles. Another angle, favoring Zira. The guard returns her pen and notebook with the comment.
Natural-born thieves, aren't they?
Zira glances at the notebook. Her face clouds. Insert what she reads. A hasty, almost intelligible squall. My name is Taylor. Close up on Zira. Her eyes afire with the wild surmise. Two shots, Zira and Julius. Her eyes never leave Taylor as she tells the guards.
Give me the collar and leash. I'm taking him to the infirmary.
He's vicious, Doctor. Besides, it's against the rules.
I say. Do as I say.
The guard shrugs and moves off. Zira beckons to Taylor. He comes towards the bars of the cage.
You won't hurt me, would you, Taylor?
Interior, Dr. Cornelius' office, established shot day. The office is simple, almost Spartan. There are books, but no bric-a-bracs. Several painted portraits of the great apes, but no tape recorder or other modern office equipment. Taylor sits at a desk, scribbling fiercely at a sheet of paper. His leash has been removed, but not his collar. Zira stands at his elbow. Cornelius paces nervously up and down, reading a sheaf of notes Taylor has already written.
Stunts. Humans don't write.
Dear, you're a scientist. Don't you believe your own eyes?
Where did you learn to do this?
Another angle, the office. Taylor scribbles something on a small desk pad, rips off the page, hands it to Cornelius.
Jefferson Public School, Fort Wayne, Indiana?
He looks at Taylor narrowly. Taylor nods.
Back on that planet you say you came from. Mm-hmm. He may be intelligent, but he's also mad.
Taylor scribbles something else on the pad, hands it to Zira, points at Cornelius.
And you're a fool.
She smiles. Cornelius busts.
Oh, just a minute.
Oh, Cornelius, be quiet.
Taylor has resumed writing. He hands the sheet to Zira, who reads aloud.
Dodge was killed in the hunt. What happened to Landon? I don't know.
They fell out of the sky with you.
Taylor writes quickly, hands the note to Zira.
Not fell, flew.
Taylor impatiently begins to fold the sheet of paper.
Flights is a scientific impossibility.
And even if it weren't, why fly? Where would it get you?
Taylor points to the floor and mouths the word here. He flings the paper plane he has just fashioned into the air. He describes a graceful arc around the room and lands at the feet of Cornelius, who slowly picks it up, then exchanges a long glance at Zira.
Well, now.
Taylor scribbles on a piece of paper, hands it to Zira.
Do you have maps?
Cornelius puts a paper plane on the desk, crosses to a wall map designed like a window shade. He pulls it down. Taylor and Zira join him at the map. Close up on the map. It's not a map of the whole planet, of course, but only that portion known to the apes. Therefore, it has the empty. And no, don't update right now. Shit. No. Sorry.
All good.
Okay. Oh, that was scary. Aspect of a map drawn by some Babylonian cartographer. A swatch of blue at the white margin indicates a sea. In the southwest quadrant are the green belts of the ape civilization, looking in the map like jade stones strung on crescent-shaped necklace. Wooded dots in the lake indicate ape communities. The northwest quadrant's colored brown is apparently inhabited. East of the green belts is a patch of green savanna, and next to it is a darker green of a jungle. The eastern quadrants are rendered in yellow, and except for a blue lake, appears to be lifeless desert and barren mountains. This area is marked Forbidden Zone. Using a pointer, Cornelius orients Taylor, indicating a red dot in the middle of the green belt.
Oh, we are here. You were captured around here.
Taylor studies the map and then pointing at the lake to the eastern desert, he goes into a brief charade, dramatizing the astronauts' landing and trek.
You fell in the water here? You came ashore. You marched across the deserts, the mountains, many days and nights, and reached the jungle.
Taylor nods, smiles briefly.
Out of the question.
Taylor slams his fist against the wall in frustration.
Cornelius, why do you insist on provoking him?
No creature can survive in the part of the Forbidden Zone. I've been there. I've seen it.
Wider angle, Lisa. Taylor strides to his desk, writes something, hands it to Zira.
Then how do you account for me?
I don't. And I'm not trying. I'm not going to try.
But what about your theory? The existence of someone like Taylor might prove it.
Sarah, are you trying to get my head cut off?
Oh, don't be foolish. If it's true, they'll have to accept it.
No, they won't.
Taylor touches Zira on the arm, makes a gesture of inquiry.
Cornelius has developed a brilliant hypothesis
It's probably wrong.
that the ape evolved from a lower order of primate, possibly man. In his trip to the Forbidden Zone, he discovered traces of a culture older than recorded time.
The evidence was very meager.
You didn't think so then.
That was before Dr. Sayers and half the Academy said the idea was heresy.
How can scientific truth be heresy? What if Taylor is exactly the proof that you need? A mutation, a missing link between the unevolved primates and the ape.
Taylor bangs his fist on the desk, mouths the word no, scribbles something on a piece of paper.
He's touchy, isn't he?
Taylor thrusts the sheet at Zira, who reads it aloud.
I am not a missing link.
Because if he is a missing link, it means the sacred scrolls aren't with their parchment.
Well, maybe they're not.
No, thank you. I won't get into that battle.
Oh, Cornelius, show some strength.
Sarah, listen to me. We've got a fine future ahead of us. Marriage, stimulating careers. I'm up for a raise.
At that moment, there is a loud rap at the door. I'll turn. Reverse angle to include the door. Dr. Zayas enters with another portly figure, Dr. Maximus. Like Zayas, Maximus is an orangutan.
Dr. Zayas.
You forget our appointment, Cornelius.
Oh, no, sir. I was just assembling my notes.
You know Dr. Maximus, our Commissioner for Animal Affairs?
Certainly, sir. It's a pleasure to see you again.
He hurries to his desk, starts gathering papers. Maximus notes Taylor with distaste.
What is that?
A man, Dr. Maximus.
I know it's a man, and you know the rules. No animals outside the compound, and most certainly not without a leash.
Another angle, the office, favoring Zayas. During the ensuing exchange, Zayas wanders idly through the office. He glances at the scattered handwritten notes, but does not read them. Meanwhile, a rattled Zira replies to Maximus.
Yes, sir, but this creature is a special case.
Why special?
We're conducting a new experiment.
Wouldn't it more properly be done in your office?
Yes, sir.
Guards,
The guerrilla guards enter from outside.
return this beast to the compound.
Another angle favoring Taylor. He regards the ape with hostility as they cross to him. One picks up his leash. Over the shot, we hear.
What's this?
Reverse angle featuring Zayas. Zira stiffens, looking at Zayas. He is holding the paper plane fashioned by Taylor.
Oh, a toy, it floats in the air. Try it.
Vera,
Zayas looks down at the paper plane in his hand, then back to Zira. He smiles tolerantly.
Nonsense.
He crumples the paper plane into a ball, drops it on his desk. The ape hooks the leash at Taylor's collar, starts leading him out. Zira follows them. Dissolves to interior cage, animal compound, full day shop. The cage primitives are asleep. Julius, the innkeeper, dozes in a chair outside Taylor's cage. Camera pivots moving in on Taylor, who is lying on his side, also asleep. Nova is curled up behind him. At the sound of a door opening, she comes instantly awake, sitting up and clutching Taylor's arm. He comes groggily awake, raising his head in time to hear.
what's up, Lieutenant?
Reverse angle, what Taylor sees. Two guerrilla officers have just entered the compound. They wear sidearms. Julius has just risen from his chair.
We're taking number 4 over to surgery in 5 minutes. Have him ready. How come? The beast's throat is nearly healed.
It's not his throat this time. The vet's going to kill him.
Close upon Taylor, he stiffens but does not move. The apes, of course, speak freely in front of him, believing the animal cannot understand.
Dr. Zero won't like it. She wants this pair to mate.
Back to the apes from Taylor's point of view. As the lieutenant replies,
These orders came from Dr. Zayas himself. There's nothing she can do about it.
two gorillas exit. The guards close crosses to a wall peg for a collar and leash. Close two shots, Taylor Nova. Pushing Nova aside, Taylor rises. Medium shot of the cage as Julius unlocks the door and cautiously approaches Tyler, carrying the collar and leash.
If only you knew, Bright Eyes, what they're going to do. Stand still now. Don't give me any trouble.
The heel of Tyler's white palm crashes into the keeper's chin, nearly snapping his neck. Julius falls unconscious. Taylor leans over him, taking his nightstick and set of keys on its belt. Reverse angle to include Nova and the male in adjacent cage. The male has awakened. He stares stupidly at Taylor. Nova is whimpering, little strange cries of fear. Taylor moves off screen. Another angle, panning with Taylor. He leaves the cage, moves swiftly to the nearby door, and exits. Interior, dark corridor, full shot day. Barefoot, Tyler silently pads down the corridor to a locked door, close on a door, which is visible because of a beam of sunlight from the half-open door of the guard's room. We hear a murmur of the ape voice and laughter. Taylor fumbles with the keys, finding one that fits the lock and opens the door. Exterior animal compound, medium shot Taylor day. He emerges quietly, locking the door behind him. Two tethered horses can be seen in the deep background, and another gust of laughter can be heard from the nearby guard's room. Taylor looks off. Long shot of what Taylor sees. As already established, the animal compound is situated on the outskirts of the ape community. The strange skyline of the town can be seen in the distance. Panning with Taylor. He starts to cross an open field outside the compound. At the moment, we hear a shrill police whistle from the guard's room. Taylor breaks into a run. Reverse angle of the compound as the two guerrilla officers emerge from the building and run towards their horses. Exterior, a dirt road, long shot Taylor. He runs down the road, starts across this long causeway that bisects a small lake looking over his shoulder. Quick dissolve to exterior Ape Town long establishing shot day. The community we see at the end of the causeway is small and arcane. There are not any power lines or street lamps, indeed, no streets as such, but only a small cluster of buildings around a pleasant mall. The architecture of the building is faintly of simpler and less rocker work of Antonio Gaudi. Columns and pillars of brick or exterior masonry look like the trunks and branches of great trees and suggest an orbital pass. A small number of apes are visible on the mall. Tyler darts behind the butt of the building, causes a situation he looks back at. Exterior, lake and causeway, long shot, morning. The two Mount Gorilla police can be seen on the causeway, galloping straight towards camera. It is evident that they will soon spot Taylor. Back to Taylor, close shot. He retreats from the buttress of a dark archway and vanishes inside the building. Interior, a dark vestibule, moving with Taylor. Vestibule is nothing, no set required, a dark space through which Taylor can move towards a shaft of light. We hear faintly the discordant chords of an organ. Or is it an organ? At any rate, a strange and melancholy tune. Tyler arrives at a font. Interior, a temple, panning with Taylor. He appears out of the distance into a half-lit. The rear of the temple is obscure. Taylor starts behind a screen. Crouching there, he observes a funeral ceremony in the temple, mid-long shot. The temple itself is small and austere. There is no altar, but against the plain backdrop, we see a statue of a lawgiver, a great ape holding a book. Below the lawgiver is an orangutan minister, cloth in the black robes. He stands in front of a closed coffin. A dozen mourners seated on comfortable wicker chairs form a semicircle around the coffin. The ape ladies wear crowns.
Weep if you must, but make an end of sorrow. He lives again. Yes, he has. My costume's falling down. He has found peace in heaven.
Close up of Tyler, crouching, listening, wide eye.
He was a model for us all. A gorilla to remember. Hunter, warrior, defender of faith.
Back to the funeral ceremony from Taylor's point of view. As the minister continues his eulogy, a small ape boy detaches himself, as children will, from the group of mourners and comes marching up the aisle towards the rear of the temple.
Cherished husband, beloved father, generous master. Yes, yes, he was a font of simian kindness.
Reverse angle shooting at Taylor, who is still crouching behind the screen in deep background. The small fry is coming closer. Over this we hear.
The dear departed once said to me, I never met an ape I didn't like.
The small fry spots Taylor. Look, it's a man! The mourners' heads turn. Taylor slinks towards the vestibule. Another angle featuring the minister. He is aghast.
In heaven's name, get rid of that creature.
Two ushers rises, moving past the on screen. Exterior temple, close on vestibule's door. Staying close on the temple wall, Taylor moves stiffly away from the vestibule door. The two apes ushers appear.
There he is.
They move towards Taylor. Flash shot of Taylor. He runs out up to the mall. Full shot, the mall. Taylor brightly sees that he is running straight towards his two mounted pursuers. Darting off in another direction, he races past startled pedestrians. Reaction shot. Two chimp pedestrians. They do a slow take. You see what I saw?
Must have escaped from the zoo.
Medium shot, mounted cop. He has spotted Taylor. Drawing a folded net from his saddlebag, he swings it overhead, like a cowboy with a lariat, and gallops off in pursuit of the man. Several shots, Taylor and pursuing mounting. Taylor runs frantically from building to building, rounding corners, vanishing momentarily and reappearing on another part of the mall. At one point, the Mountie nearly overtakes him and flings his net, which falls short. Taylor runs on. Exterior, the amphitheater, low angle shot from ground level. It is an open air structure like a Greek theater, located near the central mall. Steeply tiered, it seats no more than 50 apes. The depths in the pits in some 15 feet above ground level. Taylor enters scene, running towards the amphitheater. Changing direction, he darts into what appears to be an access tunnel. A moment later, the pursuing cop rides into the scene, dismounts, and walks towards the amphitheater, looking around for Taylor. Sear amphitheater, high angle shot. Taylor suddenly emerges from the access tunnel and runs up a ramp encircling the amphitheater. Retaining wall shields him from the view of the apes. Pausing for breath at the top of the ramp, Taylor crouches behind the upmost tier of the seats and peers down. The amphitheater from Taylor's point of view. The cop looks around, spots Taylor at the top tier, and starts after him. Sear, top of amphitheater, panning with Taylor. He starts to run back down the ramp, but suddenly confronted by his original pursuer, the dismounted cop, coming up the ramp. Reversing direction, Taylor runs around the rim of the amphitheater and vanishes into an exit tunnel. The cop blows his whistle, summoning another cop who joins him on the chase. Another part of the mall, a swift sequence of shots, in which we see the fugitive, his pursuers, and the reaction of ape shoppers and workers. Exterior, open air market, several shots. A market has been set up on one side of the mall, where street vendors behind carts are table hogs, their wares. Fruits, vegetables, wearing apparel, etc. As Taylor runs frantically through the marketplace, several apes join the chase. In the ensuing pandemonium, like the real Chinese fire drill, several tables are overturned. Exterior, a building close an archway. Taylor runs into the scene, paused, panting, and looks at the pursuers. Then he darts back through the archway into a building. Interior building tracking with Taylor Day. For the moment, he is a sole visitor in the ring. His pace slow to a walk as he and we observe fleetingly the specimen in what is a simian museum. Possibly several stuffed and unfamiliar animals, primitive artifacts and fossils, possibly the skeleton of a dog, a cat, and so on. Over this, we hear shrill police whistle. Flash shot on Taylor. He runs again. Medium shot. An ape and mother child, looking at the stuffed animals as Taylor races past. The mother gives startled scream. Reaction shot, a museum guard. He starts after the fugitive, another part of the museum featuring Taylor. He runs past displays of other stuffed animals towards the camera and halts abruptly in a closed foreground, shocked by what he sees. Dodge. Stuffed and mounted, Dodge bares his teeth at the world. Close up on Taylor. Reacting in horror, he hears another police whistle and echoing footsteps of approaching guards, which muffles his estranged gasp.
Head voice, Dodge.
Taylor vanishes in a blur of moment. Cut to exterior of the mall, Ape Town. Full shot from on high day. Order has been restored in the open air market. Taylor bursts suddenly into view from a building on the far side of the mall, running in a panic from ape guards in close pursuit. A mounted policeman spots him and heads him off. Changing directions, Taylor is intercepted by another mounted gorilla, and then a third. Camera holds angling down on the center of the mall. We are witnessing a hideous game. Baiting the man. The mounted police do not shoot or club Taylor, for he cannot escape, but they circle him, their long whips crackling over his head. Closer angle, the circle around Taylor, favoring a Mountie, who unfolds his net, swings it overhead, and flings it at Taylor. This time, he bags his curry. Taylor gives up, spent, docile, and tagged in the net. He stands stock still in the center of the mall. Guards and civilians on foot join circle around the man of bay. They regard him warily. Close shot, Dr. Zero. She pushes through the simian crowd around Taylor and hurries to his side. Close two shots, Taylor and Zero. She paused at the net, crying impulsively.
Taylor, why'd you run away?
Zero removes the net from his face, panting with exhaustion. Taylor flicks a wild glance at her. He looks demented. Wider angle to include two officers who approach Taylor and Zero. They are the same gorillas introduced in scene 198. One of them carries a collar and a leash. The others present an ID card to Zero.
Security police.
I'm in charge of this man.
No longer, madame. He is now in the custody of the Ministry of Science.
His colleagues move towards Taylor with the muzzle. Close shot featuring Taylor. He speaks at last, his voice hoarse but audible.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Full shot, the simian around Taylor. The arresting officer steps back involuntarily. All the apes freeze, starting at the speaking animal with mute astonishments. As we... Interior case, close up, Taylor and Nova Day. The compound is dimly lit, Taylor. The bandage now gone from his throat is back to his old cage. The other cages, however, are empty. The occupants presumably having been moved to the surgery or the zoo. He is seated on a pile of straw in the rear corner, Nova's head cradled on his lap. Idly he strokes her coarse hair. There's a dull glow of madness in his eyes, and his manner is one abstract soliloquy, like a man talking to a dog.
And that's when I decided to take up astronautical engineering. You see, I was halfway through college, and it's an old trick, the silent treatment. 4 weeks and 3 days, not a word for anyone. Not Zira, or Cornelius, or that damn Julius. No one will listen. Only you. You, Nova. Nova!
His manner is now more direct and educated, but she stares in blank comprehension. She brushes his moving lips with her fingers. He shrugs wryly.
Yeah, me, Tarzan. You, Jane. That's all right. I had a puppy once that never barked. He just licked my hand. He's dead now. They're all dead. Everything I think. Maybe they'll kill me too. Are they afraid of me? I can't hurt them, but I threaten them somehow. Threaten their faith in simian superiority? Yeah, you're right. They'll have to kill me.
Faint footsteps are heard. Scream. Taylor and Nova look in the direction of the sound. A sudden stream of water shoots through the bars and strikes Taylor in the chest. Wider angle, what they see. An ape guard has a high-pressure hose trained on Taylor. It forces him back towards the rear of the cage. Julius, whip in hand, unlocks the cage. Steps inside. He unlimbers the whip. Cracks. It's Nova's direction. She recoils. The jet of water holds Taylor at bay. Julius grabs Nova. begins to pull her towards the door of the cage. Taylor tries to fight his way through the water towards Julius.
Leave her alone.
Julius swings the whip. It cracks against Taylor's legs, biting into his skin. Taylor stumbles, falls to one knee.
Where are you taking her? Where are you going to?
Julius drags and pushes the girl through the door, slamming and locking it behind him. Taylor fights through the stream of water, flings himself against the bars.
Take your hands off her, you black monster, you filth.
Julius shoves Nova across the aisle to a cage opposite Taylor's, locks her inside.
Why are you doing this? Say something, you hairy son.
Julius gestures towards the ape guard.
Turn it off. Oh, there.
Turn it off.
The ape guard shuts off the hose.
Now answer me.
Julius strides over to Taylor's cage.
Shut up! The reason no one will talk to you is because you're a freak.
Where's Dr. Zira? Why?
I said shut up.
He slashes viciously with his whip handle against Taylor's fingers. Taylor yells in pain. Julius and the ape guard starts out of the compound.
It's a madhouse! A madhouse!
He sinks onto the floor as the apes go out. Full shot cage. Taylor looks desolately through the bars across to Nova's cage. She eyes him sadly.
Now I don't even have you. Imagine me needing someone. Back on Earth, there was nobody. Women, yes, lots of them. Love making. Without love, that's the kind of world it was turning into with the help of cynics like myself. So I left it because there was no one dear enough to keep me there. Did I tell you about Stuart? There was a lovely girl, the most precious cargo we brought along. If human life could survive here, she was to be the new Eve. It's probably just as well she didn't live to see this.
He looks at Nova. She stretches her hands towards the bars towards him.
I wonder if it's love between us. What a place to find it.
Full shot the cage. Two guerrilla officers enter, carrying torches. They're the same apes introduced in scene 198. One carries a double set of manacles. Julius comes to meet them. The lieutenant takes the two sets of manacles from the other officer, hands them to Julius, whispers something. Julius comes over and unlocks the door of Taylor's cage. He advances to Taylor, who does not move, bends down and clamps around each of his ankles. Then he straightens, lifts Taylor's arms, pulls his wrists together, snaps on the cuffs. Wider angle, the cage. Taylor looks across at Nova, blows her a kiss. Julius leads him out of the cage, takes his leash, and snaps it into Taylor's collar. Hands the other end to the lieutenant. Nova and Julius watch in silence as Taylor is led down the aisle and out the door. It's off to interior inquiry room, establishing shot day. Taylor, wearing his manacles, is seated at a table in the otherwise deserted chamber. There is an empty chair on either side of him. Across the room stands with three rude, high-backed chairs. There is a small table directly below the dais. A third table stands at the right angles to the dais. Taylor looks around the empty room. A door is opened by Gorilla Bailiff, and Zira and Cornelius comes into the room. Sits down on each side of Taylor. A moment later, Dr. Horns, the prosecutor, and a clerk enter, take their seats at the third table.
Where have you been? Why didn't you come to see me?
Shh!
What is this?
A hearing.
Clever. Be quiet.
All rise.
Everyone get up as the president, Dr. Zayas, and Dr. Maximus enter and mounts on the dais. The president takes the center chair, the other two flanking him.
Be seated.
They all sit down.
This ad tribunal of the National Academy is now in session. President of the Academy, presiding on my right, Dr. Maximus, Commissioner for Animal Affairs. On my left, Dr. Zayas, Minister of Science and Chief Defender of the Faith. Appearing for the state, Dr. Honest, Deputy Minister of Justice.
Cornelius Wise and bows.
Let it be clear at the outset that all matters pertaining to this inquiry are confidential, and anyone discussing them outside this chamber will be held in contempt of the tribunal. You may proceed, Dr. Honest.
By your leave, Mr. President, the tribunal has not yet defined the purpose of this inquiry. What?
The president appears to be taken back. He glances at his colleagues.
You asked for the opportunity to present your case. Surely you must know why you're here.
My own purpose is to save this exceptional creature from mutilation.
And our purpose is to settle custodial and jurisdictional questions concerning this beast and determine what's to be done with him.
At the very least, this man has the right to know whether there's a charge against him.
Objection. The accused is indeed a man, therefore he has no rights under ape law. Well, Dr. Zero, this is a man, is he not?
Close group shot defend his table. Sensing that the president has given him an opening, Zira smiles confidently.
He is unlike any man you have ever seen, as we
Answer the
hope to prove.
Question, is he a man? Sir, the question is the point at issue. Is he a man or a deviant or a freak of nature? Objection.
Full shot the crier room as the prosecutor continues.
Sustained. In all fairness, Dr. Zira, you must admit the accused is a non-ape and therefore has no rights under ape law.
Then why is he called the accused, your honors? Must think him guilty of something.
Francis is confused. Tice takes over.
Yes, Dr. Zaius.
This man is not being tried. He's being disposed of. This is scientific heresy that is actually on trial here.
Report, Dr. Zaius. Let us warn our friends that they endanger their own careers by defending this animal.
Close-up shot the defense. Both Cornelius and Zira appear shaken by the threat. Sensing their predicament, Tyler rises impatiently.
Then I'll defend myself.
Full shot the inquiry room. Although the judges and prosecutors have been told that this man can speak, they react in stunned silence to the first sound of his voice. Flustered, the president bangs his gavel.
Dr. Zira, tell Bright Eyes to sit down.
My name is Taylor.
Name is Taylor. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. We can go.
The president refuses to address Taylor directly. Checking a document, he speaks to Zira.
Says here that his name is Bright Eyes. You gave him that name yourself?
This hearing is absurd. Let me tell my story.
Bailiff, make the animal be quiet.
The bailiff quickly crosses to Taylor and shoves him roughly into the chair.
State your case, Mr. Prosecutor. Then, judges, my case is simple. It is based on our first article of faith, that the Almighty created the ape in his own image, that he gave him a soul and a mind, that he set him apart from the beast of the jungle and made him the lord of the planet.
Close-up shot of the defendant's table. Taylor has begun to write something on a sheet of paper. Zira and Cornelius remain attentive to.
These sacred truths are self-evident. The proper study of apes is apes, but certain your cynics have chosen to study man, yes, perverted scientists who advance on insidious theory called evolution.
Full shot the inquiry room as the prosecutor continues.
There is a conspiracy afoot to undermine the very cornerstone of our faith.
Come to the point, Dr. Honest.
Directly, Mr. President, this wretched man The accused is only a pawn in the conspiracy. We know that he was wounded in the throat at the time of his capture. The state charges that Dr. Zira and a corrupt surgeon named Galen experimented on this wounded animal, tampering with his brain and throat tissues to create a speaking monster.
That's a lie.
Mind your tongue, madame.
Did we create his mind too? Not only can this man speak, he can write. He can reason.
In reason. With the tribunal's permission, let me expose this hoax by direct examination.
Proceed, but don't turn this hearing into a fuss.
Honors crosses to the defendant's table and favors Taylor with an evil smile.
Tell the court, Bright Eyes, what is the second article of faith?
I admit I know nothing of your culture.
Of course, he doesn't know our culture because he cannot think. Tell us why all apes are created equal.
It seems some apes are more equal than others.
Ridiculous. That answer is a contradiction in terms. Tell us, Bright Eyes, why do men have no souls? What is the proof that a divine spark exists in the simian brain?
Show this to the president.
Taylor moves towards the dice. Honors returns to his own table.
Since the defendant is forbidden to speak his own defense, he asks that this statement be read into the record.
Read it yourself.
I have come to you from a planet in a different solar system. I am an explorer in space with no hostile intentions against your civilization. On my planet, it was the primate man who evolved. It was a primate man who evolved into a thinking animal, while the apes remained.
Stop right there. Bring me that paper.
Taylor crosses to the dice, handing the statement to the president. He glances at it, laughs razorly, and passes it to Zayas.
This is a joke. Very poor taste.
Is it a joke to seek the truth about this man?
Dr. Zira, you state here that a ship from outer space sank in an inland sea off of our western desert.
I do not state it, sir. The prisoner does.
You believe him?
Like you, I find it difficult.
But how convenient that the proof of his arrival has vanished. You also state that Bright Eyes had two intelligent companions at the time of his capture.
This is his assertion.
Where are they now?
One is
Where
in a
are they now?
museum. One is in a museum.
Dr. Zero, silence that man.
Returning to her table, Zira gestures to Taylor to remain silent.
How sad. Stuffed and mounted, eh? Dead men, like sunken ships, can tell no stories. And his other companion?
He doesn't know.
Mr. President, I believe the prosecutor has reassembled all the surviving humans captured in the hunt along with Bright Eyes.
It's true, Dr. Zayas. By witness correction, my exhibits are on display in the amphitheater.
Very well. I suggest we go and look at them.
The president rises, starts out, followed by others. Taylor is last, being led by and leashed by the bailiff. Senior amphitheater, full shot. The inquiry group flees through the door of the amphitheater. Two apes stand guard out of a number of leashed, nearly naked human beings in the center of a pit below the dais. There are three primitive males and female, Nova and Landon. He is dirty, bearded, but his hair is cropped close. Close on Taylor, he turns to Zira, his eyes shining with conviction.
Him, it's Landon.
Which one?
Second from the left.
The amphitheater's eyes glances at the accused.
Well, do you acknowledge kinship with any of these creatures?
With one of them, yes.
Identify him then. Speak to him.
Taylor moves towards a few paces and stops.
Landon.
Closer shot featuring Landon, Taylor's point of view. Landon looks catatonic, his face is in the shadow. Wider shot of Taylor, stunned by Landon's imbecility.
John, it's me, Taylor.
Taylor steps forward, grasps his arms. There is still no response. Taylor takes Landon's head in his hands and looks at his face. There's a fresh scar running across his forehead at the top of his cranium. Full shot of the amphitheater, Tyler rolls a 0.
You knew about this?
No, I swear I never saw this man before.
You did this. You removed his frontal lobes.
Silence! Bailiff! Take the prisoner inside!
The bailiff jerks brutally at Taylor's leash, pulling him down towards leading under the amphitheater. Interior choir room. Medium shot day. The bailiff enters, dragging Taylor behind him, shoves him into a chair. Moments later, the apes enter the room. All they're seated by themselves. Taylor glares at him furiously.
Mr. President, a word of explanation. The creature in question suffered a skull fracture during the hunt. 2 fine veterinary surgeons under my direction were able to save his life. But the beast could not speak, of course. Nor will he ever speak.
Taylor leaps from his chair, livid with rage, approaches with ties.
Destroy memory, his mind, his identity, and you want me to do the same to me?
Bailiff, stop the outburst! Gag that monstrosity!
The bailiff and a husky guard seize Taylor, who continues shouting.
Barbarians!
The powerful guards twist Taylor's arms behind his back, and the bailiff lashes his wrists together. Then the bailiff gags Taylor. His voice is cut off as the bailiff ties twisted kerchief around his open mouth. The guard holds Taylor's leash during the rest of the scene. Meanwhile, Cornelius has risen to his feet. His tone is firm but conciliatory.
May it please the tribunal, I for one grant that this being cannot have come from another planet, but this much is certain. He comes from somewhere in the Forbidden Zone. He has described the region to us and described it accurately, for I have been there.
You visited the Forbidden Zone.
Why, yes, sir. A year ago, with the special permission of the Academy.
He exceeded his orders. His travel permit was promptly revoked.
Yes, sir. So it was, thanks to you, but not before I discovered evidence of a simian culture that existed long before the sacred scrolls were written. Objection. These remarks are profane and irrelevant.
Sustained. Your archaeological theories have no bearing on the disposition of this creature.
Let them talk, Mr. President. Let them talk.
Sirs, our theories have a bearing on this identity.
How so?
Let us assume, as common sense dictates, that the prisoner's story is false. But if he does not come from another planet, then surely he sprang from our own. Yes, sprang. As an animal psychologist, I have found no psychological defect to explain why humans are mute.
Objection.
Sustained.
Their speech organs are adequate. The flaw lies not in anatomy, but in the brain.
Objection.
Sustained.
Sustain all objections, but face the truth.
Cornelius has regained his courage. Rising to Zira's support, he points at Taylor.
Yes. Behold, this moth, this living paradox, this missing link is an evolutionary chain.
Silence. You've gone too far.
There you are, Mr. President. I warned you these two would use this hearing as a forum for subversion.
You're right. The advocates of heresy revealed themselves.
Mr. President, I think an indictment is in order.
Yes, sir. The state charges Dr. Zira and Cornelius with contempt of this tribunal, malicious mischief, and scientific heresy.
Be it so ordered. Tribunal will examine all the evidence presented here and in due time render a verdict on the proposed indictment and on the disposition of the deviant in question. This hearing is adjourned.
All rise. The guard drags Taylor in crier room. Zira and Cornelius stand there, stunned by the entrapment into which Zayas has maneuvered them. Dissolved to a small office close on Dr. Zira's night. The office is unadorned and Spartan as that of Cornelius. In fact, with minor changes in the decor, the same set can be used. There are many thick leather-bound books on the scholar's desk. Zayas is reading one of them and taking notes. He looks up as someone knocks at the door. Reverse shot shooting past Zayas. Two agents push Taylor to the doorway.
Wait outside.
Officers withdraw, closing the door. Collared with Manfred. Taylor stands facing the desk.
Verdict is in. At the moment, your simian friends and sponsors are free on bail, but they'll soon be brought to trial for heresy.
Another angle favoring Zayas, who falls silent, as if there were only two news of import. We note once and change Zayas' tone and attitude. He no longer treats Taylor like a freak animal, but addresses him as a imaginative adversary who must be intimidated by the threat of terror.
What about me?
Oh, your case was preordained. In a way, you performed a service for the state, because your hearing made it possible for us to expose Zira and Cornelius. And now the tribunal has placed you in my custody for, final disposition. Do you know what that means?
No.
Emasculation, to begin with. Then, experimental surgery on the speech centers, on the brain. Ultimately, a kind of living death.
Taylor stiffens but says nothing. Zayas lets the prospect sink in, then continues.
However, it's within my power to grant you a reprieve. That is why I summoned you here tonight. Tell me who and what you really are and where you come from. And no veterinary will touch you.
I told the truth of that hearing of yours.
You lied. Where is your tribe?
My tribe, as you call it, lives on another planet in a distant solar system.
Then how is it we speak the same language? Even in your lies, some truth slips through. That mythical community you're supposed to come from? Fort Wayne?
What about it?
A fort! Unconsciously, you chose a name that was belligerent. Where were you nurtured?
I take it you don't believe the prosecutor's charge that I'm a monster created by Dr. Zira.
Certainly not. You're a mutant.
That's exactly what Zira and Cornelius claim. You're talking heresy, Doctor.
Of course.
All right, suppose I am a mutant. Why does the appearance of one mutant send you into a panic?
Because you're not unique. There was the one you call Landon.
Then you admit it.
I admit that there's one mutant, there's probably another. And another. A nest of them. Where's your nest, Taylor?
Thank you.
Where are your women?
Thank you. Thank you for calling me Taylor. Dr. Sayas, I know who I am. Who are you? How did this upside down civilization ever get started?
You may well call it upside down, since you occupy its lowest level, and deservedly. The Eastern Desert has never been explored, because we always assume that no life can exist there. Save yourself, Taylor. Tell me, is there another jungle beyond the Forbidden Zone?
I don't know.
If you're protecting others of your kind, it will cost you your identity.
I'm not protecting anybody. That hearing was a farce. What have I done?
You're a menace, a walking pestilence. I do know who you are, Taylor, as I know that others of your kind must live in the Forbidden Zone. You have 6 hours to make a full confession. After that, I'll employ surgery to obtain one. Guards!
Two burly security guards open the door and enter.
Take this creature back to his cage.
Two guards seize Taylor, start to shove him towards the doorway. He twists around, faces Zeiss.
All right, you can cut me into pieces. It's within your power. But you know this, Doctor. You do it because you're afraid of me. You do it from fear.
Zeiss jerks his head silently towards the door. The ape drags Taylor through it. Resolves two interior adjacent gages, medium shot night. A few hours have passed. Zova is watching Taylor from her cage across the aisle. He sits on a pile of straw. There is an ugly welt of his cheek, made by security officer's whip. Footsteps are heard. Taylor and Nova look up and off. Reverse angle what they see. A solemn teenage chimp named Lucius appears outside the cage. The guard, Julius, rises from his chair.
Are you Julius? What do you want? I'm from the Office of Animal Affairs. This mail's to be transferred to the zoo at this hour? Who says so?
Taylor enters scene, coming over to the cage bears. As Lucius continues gravely, just a note of disdain.
Don't they tell you anything? The anti-vivisectionist society is up in the arms. They're going to save this beast from those butchers in the lab. If he can speak, he belongs in the public zoo. But what'll probably happen is that some money-mad grown-up will put him in a circus, and then we'll have to pay to see what rightfully should have. Stop making these speeches and show me the order.
Lucius hands the guard a document. It is dark here, so Lucius crosses to a beam of light near the bars and studies the document. Lucius, behind the guard's back, signals frantically for Taylor to seize and strike the guard. Taylor is slow to understand. Lucius shakes his head immediately, patiently.
This order's no good. It must be countersigned by Dr. Zaius.
Lucius suddenly gives Julius a violent shove. The guard head crashes against the bars. He is stunned.
Hit him.
Taylor complies, bringing down the heel of his fist to the nape of the guard's neck. Julius collapses. The youngsters immediately squat down, gags him, and begins to bind hand and foot. Camera moves in.
Who are you?
So you can talk. I'm Dr. Zira's nephew. This abduction was her idea. You are not really going to the zoo. That's just our cover story in case we're stopped. Although, I do feel that if it ever came down to a question of whether something like you should be public or private property,
Come on. Get me out of here.
Taking the guard's keys, Lucius rises and locks the cage. Nova enters the scene, coming to the bars of her cage. Close up the shot of Taylor and Nova. He gazes at her, tense with indecision. She flashes an imploring smile, a mute appeal that cannot be denied. Over this we hear.
you've got to move fast.
Wider angle to clue Lucius as Taylor leaves the cage.
She comes along too.
Zira doesn't want your female.
I want her.
If you insist, but I'm not taking any orders.
Fine, just let her out.
Lucy unlocks Nova's cage. She comes out quickly. Takes Taylor's hand. They follow Lucius out of the compound. Exterior animal compound. A horse-drawn cage wagon, like the one used in the hunt, stands near the building. Zira waits at the near of the wagon. Lucius, Taylor, and Nova emerges from a doorway or archway and joins her. Zira notes Nova's presence with disapproval. They speak in undertones.
I told you not to bring the other one.
You wouldn't leave her.
All right. Get in, hurry, put this on.
Listen.
Taylor, just keep quiet and we may get away with this. Remember that men all look alike to most apes.
Taylor and Nova comply, climbing into the cage. Lucius climbs the tailgate. Lucius and Zira move to the front of the wagon and climb aboard. Lucius takes the reins as they move off. Exterior Lake and Casway, long high angle shot. To establish the animal compound is the outskirts of the ape town. The doctors must cross the gateway of their route to escape. In the distance near the gazebo, we can see the lights of torches. The cage wagon rolls into the scene and out of the causeway. At the same time, a mounted gorilla leading two pack animals appear at the far side of the causeway, coming towards camera. Lucius stops the wagon. Close-up shot of the two, Lucius and Zero on the wagon.
Gorilla hunters.
Keep moving. We can't turn back now.
Zoom shot causeway. As mounted hunters near the wagon, we can see two bodies slung across the backs of the pack animals. Last shot, Taylor and Nova in the back wagon. They looked out. Passing horses, bodies of the horses are naked corpses. Medium shot, causeway, reverse angle, immediate foreground near the gazebos, a similar wagon. A lost wheel and its rear axle lies at the edge of the causeway. Two naked primitive males can be dimly seen within the cage. 4 or 5 gorilla hunters stand near the wagon. 2 of them carry torches, the others passing a jug of hand to hand. Leaders of the hunt club, still on horseback, holds the hand as the lab wagon approaches.
Hold it.
Lucius obeys. The hunters on foot swarm across the wagon as their leader calls authoritatively.
Dr. Zira. Our wagon broke down. I'm afraid we'll have to commandeer yours.
Closer angle, the lab wagon, as the hunt club leader rides over, recognizing the animal psychologist.
You can't. I have 2 sick humans in the cage. We're taking them to the chief vet at the zoo.
We bagged 2 live ones today. I'll have to ask you to take them along.
He moves to the rear of the wagon.
No, my animals are diseased. Leave them alone. They're diseased, I tell you.
Lucius jumps down and runs towards the rear of the wagon. Reverse angle rear of the wagon, the hunters have opened the tailgate and are shining their torches on the humans. They sound ready for sport.
Give him a taste of fire.
One of the hunters points his torch at Taylor, who naturally shrinks back as Lucius runs into the scene.
Stand back. He's dangerous.
Why? He's rabid. His bite is fatal. You serious?
You would die in agony. Frothing at the mouth.
The hunters fall back. Lucius promptly locks the tailgate as he and Zero runs back to the front of the wagon. Lucius snaps the reins of the wagon, moves off. The hunters follow in a few paces, pausing near their mounted leader.
They treat those animals better than they treat us. Guess they say the only good human is a dead human.
The wagons recede beyond the gazebo. As we whiz off to the exterior of an open range, long shot. The horse-drawn wagon is a silhouette against the dawn light, bumping across a semi-arid plain, studded with mesquite and sage. It is off to exterior savanna, long shot. This is the same area. As the wagons will along the dirt track, the tall grasses of the savanna can be seen in the background. Close-up shot, Taylor and Nova in the wagon. Taylor is dozing, but the girl is alert and nervous. She peers out of the field, apparently recognizing or remembering this terrain. She nudges Taylor, waking him. Exterior of the grove of the wild fruits, long panning shot. Camera pans with the wagon as it rolls into the grove and holds on 3 horses. Cornelius sits astride 1 horse. The other 2 nags are heavily burdened with packs and saddlebags. Closer angle the grove, favoring Cornelius. He demounts Azira and Lucius jumps down the wagon and hurry towards them. Cornelius and his fiancée embrace and kiss lightly, ape fashion.
How did it go?
There was one bad moment. Some hunters stopped us.
I persuaded them our beasts and rabies.
Close 2 shot, Taylor and Nova in the cage wagons. The ape discussing the abduction are out of earshot. Exasperated to be thus ignored in cage. Taylor kicks the tailgate, shouting,
Let me out of here.
broader angle to include the group. Lucius hurries back to unlock the tailgate. Taylor gets onto the wagon, stretching the stiff joints. Nova follows suit. During the ensuing exchange, the girl seems strangely agitated, pacing to and fro, her eyes scanning the globe and fields in search of someone or something.
Well, Taylor, we're all fugitives now.
Do you have any weapons?
The best. But we won't need them.
Just the same, I want one.
He moves towards one of the horses. Cornelius starts after him.
Look here, Taylor. I'm in charge of this expedition.
Taylor takes the rifle from one of the packs, examines it.
Fair enough, but you're no longer in charge of me, and I don't mean to be captured again.
Theron Lucius has come up.
As you wish.
Zayas seems to think there will be another jungle beyond the Forbidden Zone. That's what we'll try for. What about you?
Cornelius and I have been indicted for heresy. Unless we can prove our theories, we don't stand a chance for acquittal.
You're going back to the Forbidden Zone?
To the diggings I worked at a year ago. It's a 3-day ride across the eastern desert near where you claim you landed from a planet of yours.
You still don't believe me, do you?
It's a long detour to Dead Lake. What would we find?
Taylor makes a helpless gesture, realizing he cannot present sure proof.
Nothing much, the remnants of a life raft, maybe a small flag, the emblem of my countrymen.
Sorry, Taylor. The terrain around that lake is poisonous. There is no fresh water, no vegetation, nothing.
I know. Nevertheless, I thank you for saving us. You'll be in trouble for going there.
We've all been in trouble since the moment we met you.
Nova seizes Taylor's arm to get his attention. Trying to communicate, she makes whimpering sounds and points at the distant jungle as seen from the grove. 0. Go, Anne.
Oh, okay, we skipped things. Sorry. What's she pointing at?
Back to Taylor and the others. Taylor smiles at Nova, giving her a reassuring shrug.
That's the way home, and she knows it. Nova! We can't stay here. It's not safe.
We better get started. If the mounted police pick up our trail, they'll come this far at least.
Right. Let's put the water and provisions in the wagon.
Are you going to take her with you?
Yes. Yes.
Actually, you're a different breed. This creature will never evolve.
Maybe not.
Want her that much?
You threw us together, remember? And you guessed right. Men like apes get despondent without a mate.
He walks off to help Lucius and Cornelius. Nova tags along behind him as we dissolve. The group moves across the plateau. Exterior dry wash and tamarisk featuring Scarecrow's Day. The cavern is crossing in a reverse direction, the route taken by the astronauts on page 17. The 3 apes are on horseback. Taylor and Nova follow the wagon. They are nearing the row of sinister scarecrows in the box above the dry wash. Medium shot, the 3 mounted apes. They halt briefly and look up at the crosses. Lucius is impressed.
Put them up.
The Hunt Club?
To scare off humans. To scare us, too. We're entering the Forbidden Zone.
They move off again, riding across the dry wash. 2 shots, Taylor and Nova, seated on the wagon. They too have stopped and are looking at Scarecrow. Nova is painfully terrified. She grabs Taylor's arms, whimpers.
Oh, don't worry, you'll be safe with me. Here, it's time you learn to turn your keep.
He hands the reins to Nova. She just sits there. He demonstrates.
You can do it, like this.
Nova flicks the reins, reacting in wide-eye, open-mouthed disbelief as the horse obeys her. The soft to exterior desert plateau, long, high-angle shot. The party is traversing a red desert of the east of Dead Lake. Great sandstone monoliths rise from the desert floor. From this vantage point, the horses look no bigger than ants. Dissolve 2 exterior rim of a deep gorge, helicopter shot. This is terrain never before seen in the picture. The party can be seen on the rim of a flat desert tableland and falls away abruptly to the vast regular river of the deep blue water. Taylor, Cornelius, and Lucius are unloading the wagon and repacking their provisions and equipment on the backs of horses. Zero watches them. Closer angle of the group, Zero wanders off. Lucius falls to her knees. Oh, falls to her knees, not Lucius.
Something's wrong with your mate.
Taylor looks off. He and the others move quickly to Nova, camera panning with them. Close group shot around Nova. She's been tracked. Taylor lifts her up. She is faint with nausea. Zero squats down beside them.
Let me handle this. You may be smarter than I am, but I'm the veterinary on this planet.
Assisting Nova to her feet, Zero leads her off towards the wagon. Medium shot Cornelius, Taylor, and Lucius. Taylor watches the departing females, then looks down at the river.
Where does the river lead?
It empties into a sea some miles from here. That's where the cave is.
Long shot the river, their point of view. The river winds off scene between the sheer sandstones, cliff rising from either banks.
And beyond that?
We shot Taylor, Lucius, and Cornelius.
Don't know. At high tide, can't ride along the shore. We had no boats on the last expedition.
You never told me why this region's called the Forbidden Zone.
No one really knows. It's an ancient taboo set forth in the sacred scrolls. The lawgiver pronounced the area deadly. Shouldn't we be moving on?
I'm for that.
They start towards the horses and wagon. Group shot near the wagon. Zero is looking curiously at Nova, who stands in the shade leaning against the wagon as the male enter the scene. Nova nausea has passed, and she comes smiling to Taylor.
What's the diagnosis, doctor? A touch of the sun?
She's not sick at all. She's pregnant.
Close up on Taylor. Sedation slowly gives way to wonder. He grins.
So I'm not altogether different breed, you see.
Dissolves to the center of the gorge. Several shots, Dave. To reach the campsite, a beach of the base of the gorge, the party must lead the horses along a narrow trail and zigzag down the face of the sandstone cliffs. They have abandoned the wagon. Dissolve to archaeological camp. Establishing shot. Sandbars and two narrow beaches are in evidence here. The camp itself consists of several lean-tos against the cliff wall. About the camp, reached by ladders connected by scaffolding. In the mouth of the cave, Zero is cleaning up for breakfast things. Size and Lucius are sorting out equipment. Closer angle, Taylor and Zero. A small bowl of water rests on the ground in front of Taylor. He nearly finishes shaving himself with a sharp hunting knife. Nova watches, a look fascinated approval of her face. Taylor rinses off his knife, starts to dry it. Nova reaches out, gently strokes his smooth, if nicked, chin.
You like it?
Lucius Cornelius comes up, Zero with them.
Why did you do that? Scrape off your hair.
In my world before I left, only youngsters of your age wore unscraped hair.
It makes you look somehow less intelligent.
Taylor grins weirdly at Cornelius, picks up his rifle.
When are you going to show me what's in the cave?
Right now, if you like.
They cross the beach to the ladders when suddenly they hear the sound of horses. They look off scene. What they see, Dr. Zayas and 5-armed Mount Apes have come around the corner of the beach and ride towards them through the rocks. Medium shot of the group. Taylor scumbles up on the lower scaffolds. Lucius runs to a lean-to scoop his rifle.
Lucius, don't fire at them.
Roll under arrest. You seditious scoundrel. Drop that rifle.
Last shot, Lucius. He wavers, lowering his piece. Wider shot to include both groups. Thighs gorillas wide towards a few paces, but halt against as Taylor shouts.
Stop right there.
Don't be a fool. You're outnumbered and outgunned.
Taylor aims his eyes and calls out.
If there's any shooting, Dr. Zaius, you'll be the first to die. Depend on it.
Taylor, you're not in command here. Put down that gun.
Very well. Lower your weapons.
They obey. Taylor calls again.
Tell them to move around the point of range.
Zeiss turns and whispers to the apes. They rein out and ride away through the walks. Zeiss dismounts and approaches the fugitives alone. He is unarmed. Closer angle of the group as Zeiss draws nearer. Lucius lowers his rifle, but Taylor keeps his ready.
How did you know we'd come here?
It wasn't difficult. Only an apostate or a lunatic would flee to the Forbidden Zone. I see you brought along the female of your species. I didn't realize a man could be monogamous.
On this planet, it's easy.
That's nicely as he turns to the apes.
I ask you to reconsider the rash course you've taken. If you're convicted of heresy, the most you'll get is 2 years. But if you persist in pointing guns in my direction, you'll hang for high treason.
We've never meant to be treasonable, sir. But up there, in the face of that cliff, is a vast cave. And in that cave, a fabulous treasure of fossils and artifacts.
I've seen some of your fossils and artifacts. They're worthless.
As the Minister of Science, honor bound to expand the frontiers of knowledge.
Taylor, please.
Except that he's also the chief defender of the faith.
There is no contradiction between faith and science. True science.
All right, let's see if you're willing to put that statement to a test.
Taylor, I'd rather you.
No, you save me from this fanatic. Maybe I can pay you back.
What is your proposal?
Where were the scared scrolls written?
The sacred scrolls were written 1,200 years ago.
Very well. If Zira and Cornelius can prove that those scrolls don't tell the whole truth of your history, if they can show you definite evidence of other culture from an unrecorded past, will you exonerate them?
Exonerate them.
That too? Okay, up to the cave.
He gestures towards the path leading to it. Zeiss, Zira, and Cornelius start upward. Lucius starts to follow them.
Sorry, Lucius, you'll have to stay here and guard the horses.
Always giving orders. Just like every other adult.
Relax. You'll see it later.
He passed the barrel of Lucy's gun in a matter of stern but benevolent non-com, then starts up the trail with Nova at his heels. Lucy is unused to taking commands from an animal, scowls after him, then shrugs, adjusting the idea. Exterior western wall of gorge, long shot, angly up the afternoon, the sun hovers over the rim of the lake like a great red balloon. The wall of the gorge in shadows is a darker hue.
With you.
Right. Exterior eastern wall of gorge, long shot, angling up. The city east wall, looking like a red cathedral, is aglow with sunlight. So is the mouth of the cave as the 3 apes, Tyler and Nova, pass through it off screen. Interior cavern, boom shot day. Nature has formed a vaulted room here. It need not be enormous, but should be as weird and fantastic as production capabilities permit. There is an ape-made excavation in the floor of the cave, some 10 feet square and 8 feet deep. Some small objects lie on the rim of the excavation. Zaius, Cornelius, Zira, Tyler, and Nova enter from the outside. Do you want me to read the author's note?
You don't have to. No.
Okay.
Present your evidence, Cornelius.
Cornelius clambers down into the pit, followed by Zira. Tyler bends down, examines some of the artifacts lined along the edge of the excavation. Nova sits beside him.
It was at this level I discovered traces of an early
Okay.
It was at this level I discovered traces of an early ape creature, stage of primitive barbarism, really dating back roughly 1300 years. It was here I found cutting tools and arrowheads of quartz and the fossilized bones of carnivorous gorillas. But
Camera.
Keep going.
the artifacts lying at your feet were found here at this level, and that's the paradox. The more ancient culture is the more advanced. Admittedly, many of these objects are unidentified, but clearly they were fashioned by beings with the knowledge of metallurgy. Indeed, the very fact that these tools are unknown to us could suggest a culture in certain ways almost equal to our own. Some of the evidence is uncontestable.
Don't speak to me in absolutes. The evidence is contestable.
I apologize.
Begin with, your methods of dating in the past are crude, to say the least. There are geologists on my staff who would laugh at your speculations.
Perhaps that's why they're on your staff.
Zaius flicks a hostile glance at Taylor, then looks down at the artifacts. He nudges them with his foot.
Secondly, if these tools, as you call them, are unidentified, why are they introduced as evidence of anything?
But there's the doll, sir.
What?
Right there. The human doll.
Zaius decides to stoop and picks it up. Close on doll in Zaius' hand. It is only a porcelain fragment, but the head is intact, and it is unmistakably the form of a human child.
What does this prove? My granddaughter plays with human dolls.
Full shot. The excavation, including Tyler. Exasperated, Zira turns to the man for confirmation.
Taylor, tell him.
He has a point. On my planet, children often play with ape dolls.
Eyes oddly tosses the doll to the ground near Nova. She picks it up, studies it. Group shot, the three apes. Cornelius tries again.
Doll alone proves nothing true. But the doll was found beside the jawbone of a man, and no trace of simian fossils has turned up in this deposit.
Your conclusion is premature. Have you forgotten your scripture, the 13th scroll? And Proteus brought the upright beast into the garden and chained him to a tree, and the children made sport of him.
No, sir, I haven't forgotten.
Well, for a time the ancients kept humans as household pets, until the lawgiver proved that man could not be tamed. Keep digging, Cornelius. You'll find evidence of the master of this house, an ape.
Another angle, to include Tyler and Nova. Azira again appeals to the man.
Are you going to let that pass without an answer?
Tyler has been toying with objects in the dirt, looks up.
Yes, I have to agree. From all you found so far, his position's as good as yours.
What are you doing there?
Reconstructing a life. Care to have a look?
Cornelius and Zira cross the pit, and Zeiss walks around the rim of the excavation, medium close shot, favoring Taylor and Nova. As the apes come close, a number of artifacts have been arranged in front of Taylor.
These were found near the human doll, right? Well, whoever owned them was in pretty bad shape.
He picks up the twisted fragment of a pair of spectacles.
Defective eyesight.
As Taylor continues his monologue, he picks up the other objects one by one.
He wore false teeth. He suffered from a hernia and used this truss to hold up his insides. And toward the end, these little rings of stainless steel enclosed a fabricated valve in his failing
Honey,
heart.
it's a prefabricated valve, right?
Oh, thank you. I thought I was the one crazy.
Taylor pauses. His eyes picks up the two of the steel rings, studies them.
I don't say he was a man like Earthman, but I'd call him a close relative, for he was plagued by most of man's ills. Yet, fragile as he was, he came before you and was superior to you.
That's lunacy. I can give an alternate description for every one of these objects that's equally as inventive as yours. But it would be conjecture, not proof.
Wider angle to include Taylor Nova. She is poking her finger inside the decapitated head of the doll. From it came a distorted sound. Oh, thank you. Mama! 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 The apes stare at the doll in astonishment. Taylor snatches the doll from Nova, brandishes it at the astonished Sayus.
Dr. Zayas, would an ape make a doll that talks?
Sayus looks at him, speechless. At that moment, the crack of a distant rifle shot reverberates through the cab. All present freezes, listening.
Lucius.
Full shot, the cavern, reverse angle. Taylor alone is armed. Raising his rifle, he glowers at Sayus.
You lose.
Cornelius is already crossing the pit. He climbs out of it, races towards the mouth of the cave. Taylor runs after him. Zira and Nova hurry after Taylor. Medium shot size. Expressionist, he looks down at the doll, then moves towards the mouth of the cave. Excuse me. Exterior, trail from cave to camp, angling up. Cornelius emerges from mouth of the cave and runs down the trail towards camera. He halts in the foreground, looking down at the campsite, as seen from the trail. Two of Zai's gorillas have disarmed Lucius and are clubbing him with their rifle butts. Two other mounted apes are driving the scientist horses back beyond the trees. Exterior the trail, as seen from the beach. Cornelius, Taylor, Nova, and Zira, in that order, can be seen high above, descending the trail. Camera pulls back to disclose a gorilla sniper in immediate foreground, crouching behind a boulder near the water. He sights his rifle at the man on the trail. Tyler is still too distant to make a sure target, and so the sniper waits. Closer angle, Tyler on the trail. The portion of the trail has no cover or concealment. Unaware of the sniper, Tyler looks down at the camp as he makes his descent. Long shot. Tyler, as seen in the sniper. Sniper sights. The gorilla's fire. Close shot, Tyler. The bullet ricochets off the rock wall and a foot above the head. Tyler scans the terrain below, looking for the sniper. Nova comes to his side, pointing at the sniper from their point of view. His head is visible behind the boulder as he reloads his piece. Flash shot. He aims and fires. Flash shot, the sniper. Tyler has missed him, but the sniper ducks behind the boulder, the trail, panning with Tyler and Nova. Tyler takes his hand and they race up the trail to where Zira is standing. Outcropping of the rocks, some rocks offer some cover here. Taylor pushes Nova down behind a rock and signals for Zira to follow suit. Close group shot, Taylor, Nova, and Zira. The sniper's second shot rings out. Instead of returning the fire, Tyler looks up at the rail at Zeiss from Taylor's point of view. He is standing passively on the trail, a short distance below the mouth of the cave. Flash shot, Tyler. Bent low, he comes charging up the trail towards Zeiss. The sniper's third shot splatters wax fragments around him. Reverse angled the trail, angling up. Zeiss starts to retreat to the cave, but stumbles and falls on some loose shale. No sooner has Zeiss regained his feet than Tyler overtakes him. Seizing the ape around the neck with his left arm, Tyler dives the muzzle of his pistol into Zeiss' kidney. He spins Zeiss around, using him as a shield. Close two shots. Zeiss and Taylor. Taylor releases the pressure on Zeiss' throat, but keeps the gun pointed at his back.
Tell him to pull back.
Cease fire! Withdraw!
His command echoes from the west wall of the canyon. Long shot. The floor of the gorge, from their point of view. The sniper emerges from behind a boulder near the shore and walks off along the beach. Back to Taylor and Zeiss. Taylor lifts the muzzle of his rifle and presses it against the back of Zeiss's head.
I ought to kill you right now. Let's go.
They move off down the trail. Exterior archaeological camp, medium shot day. Zero rushes down the trail to Lucius, who is sprawled on the ground. He has a bloody nose and a lump on his forehead. Nova and Cornelius come next. Then Taylor prodding Zeiss ahead at him at the gunpoint. Lucius appears to be more humiliated than hurt.
They took me by surprise, sneaked up on me while I was watering the horses. What's happened to honor? I got off one round to warn you. They've taken everything.
Not everything. They left a hostage. How do you feel, Lucius?
Disillusioned, but vindicated. I've been right all along. You can't trust the older generation. It's a matter of values.
All right, all right. Will you do me a favor? No orders.
What is it?
I want you to go around the bend and tell those guerrillas their leader is my prisoner.
Yes, I can do that.
Good. Say I want a week's supply of food for the woman and myself, a horse, a spade, and 50 rounds of ammunition.
What if they won't agree to your terms?
Then tell them Dr. Zaius won't leave here alive.
Taylor, you can't.
Oh, yes, he can. He's a born killer. Deliver the message.
Lucius looks to Taylor for confirmation. Taylor nods. The young ape hurries away through the rocks. Taylor crosses to a useless saddle, picks up a coil of rope, gestures at Zeiss, indicating a nearby tree.
Sit down over there.
Zeiss squats on the ground beside the tree. Tyler sets his rifle against the trunk, fashions a noose, and places it around Zeiss' neck. When using an ingenious combination of knots, he ties Zeiss' hand behind his back, and finally fastens the rope around the base of the tree.
Now, Minister of Science, let me explain certain principles, stress and strain. If you exert pressure to remove these bonds, you'll choke yourself to death. It'll be suicide. You see?
Zira and Cornelius look down at the captive Mandarin. Their rebellious spirit has evaporated, and they are clearly afraid.
Taylor, please, don't treat him that way.
Why not?
It's humiliating.
Wasn't I humiliated by all of you? Didn't you lead me around on a leash?
That was different. We thought you were inferior.
And now you know the truth. Cornelius has beaten you, Doctor. He proved it. Man preceded you here. You owe him your science, your language, whatever knowledge you have.
And answer this. If man was superior, why didn't he survive?
He might have been wiped out by a plague, natural catastrophe, something called COVID-19 almost killed him maybe, like a fury storm of meteors from the looks of this part of your planet. I'd say that was a fair bet. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Zira. Zira?
Sorry?
Oh no, I thought you said something. I couldn't hear you.
I said, but we can't be sure.
Oh, perfect, thank you. He is. He knew all the time, long before your discovery. He knew. Defender of the faith, guardian of the terrible secret. Isn't that right, Doctor?
Reverse angle circle, favoring Zeiss. Azir and Cornelius look at him expectantly.
What I know of man was written long ago, set down by the wisest ape of all, our lawgiver. Open my breast pocket.
Cornelius crosses his eyes and takes Cornelius crosses his eyes and takes a small book bound in black leather from the breast pocket of his tunic.
Read it to him. The 23rd scroll, 9th verse.
Cornelius thumbs through the book, finds the citation, and reads aloud.
Beware the beast man, for he is the devil's pawn. Alone among God's primates, he kills for sport or just lust, greed. Yes, he will murder his brother to possess his brother's land. Let him not breed in great numbers, for he will make a desert of his home and yours. Shun him, drive him back into his jungle lair, for he is the harbinger of death.
Cornelius falls silent and looks down at Zeiss.
I found nothing in the cave to alter that conception of man, and I still live by its injunction.
No, let her take.
Okay, I'm leaving.
Okay.
Go for it. Okay.
Sorry. Another angle. The group. Lucius hurries out of the rocks leading saddled horses. Zeiss' 5 mounted gorillas appear behind him. Taylor calls to them.
Stay where you are.
Lucius comes up with the horse. Taylor checks the provisions of the saddlebags. Lucius is frowning.
They think you're behaving foolishly. I must say I agree. Where will you go?
I'll start by following the shoreline and my nose.
Suppose you find nothing but a wasteland. How would you survive?
Won't survive. Do you know what sort of life awaits you out there, Taylor? That of an animal. If you aren't eventually hunted down and killed by apes, some jungle beast will devour you.
Then there's another jungle.
Of course. You could return with us. Our society might find a place for you and your mate.
Sure, in a cage.
Where else but in a cage does man belong?
No thanks. I'll take freedom.
Taylor mounts the horse, extends a helping hand to Nova, who vaults nimbly onto the horse's rump. Taylor looks at Zira and Cornelius.
Would you like to come along?
We can't.
It's better than going to prison for heresy.
They can't convict us of that. You proved our innocence. Besides, his culture is our culture.
Good luck then.
He reaches down, grasps Cornelius' hand, then grins crookedly.
Dr. Zira, I'd like to kiss you. Goodbye.
Oh, all right, but you're so damned ugly.
Taylor smiles, leans down, kisses her.
Go with God, Taylor. That's an old expression. It comes from both ape and man.
God bless you.
He extends his hand to Lucius, who takes it.
Lucius?
I think you're making a mistake.
That's the boy. Keep him flying.
What?
The flags of discontent. It's the only way anything ever gets changed. Don't try to follow us. I'm pretty handy with things like this.
Of that I'm sure. All my life I've awaited your coming and dreaded it, like death itself.
Taylor looks piercingly at Zeiss, more troubled than offended.
Why? From the first I've terrified you, Doctor, and in spite of every sign that I'm an intelligent being who means no harm, you continue to hate and fear. Why?
Because you are a man. And you were right. I have always known about man. From the evidence, I believe his wisdom must walk hand in hand with his idiocy. His emotions must rule his brain. He must be a warlike animal who gives battle to everything around him, even himself.
What evidence? No weapons were found in the cave.
The Forbidden Zone was once a paradise. Your breed made a desert of it ages ago.
We're back at the beginning. I still don't know why. A planet where apes evolved from man? A world turned wrong side up? A puzzle with one piece missing.
Don't look for it, Taylor. You may not like what you find.
Wider angle, Taylor and the group. Taylor shakes his head, still baffled, digs his heels into the horse's flank. It canters off along the sandy shore. Zero, Cornelius, and Lucius sadly watches the departure.
Untie me!
Cornelius moved quickly to remove the rope from Zai's neck. Behind them, the 5 mounted guerrillas gallop forward. Zaius gets up, waves them to a halt.
No. Let him go.
Moving shot. Tyler and Nova on horseback. Taylor looks back, sees that Zaius has stopped the mounted apes, slow his horse to a trot, smiles at Nova. Medium shot, the apes. Zaius watches as Taylor's horse moves farther away, along the beach. Then he turns to an ape called Marcus.
Fetch your explosives. We're going to seal the cave.
I didn't cast a Marcus, so anyone go for it.
Yes, sir.
He remounts his horse and rides off screen.
Seal the cave.
That's correct. And you will both stand trial for heresy.
But the proof, the doll.
In a few minutes, there will be no doll. There can't be. I'm sorry.
You mustn't. You gave your word.
What I do with no pleasure. Silence him.
Yes.
A hairy hand is clapped over Cornelius' mouth. He is dragged off, struggling, kicking Julius. Unafraid, glared at Zeiss.
Dr. Zaius, this is inexcusable. Why must knowledge stand still? What about the future?
Zeiss looks benevolently at Julius.
I may have just saved it for you.
Julius and Zero look at each other, befuddled. Once more, their eyes follow the retreating figures of Tyler and Nova. The beach separating the water from the canyons become narrower as they move downstream.
What will he find out there, Doctor?
Close up, Zeiss. His face is a mask. His tone enigmatic.
His destiny.
Wider angle, Ty Ape's point of view. A moment later, as they watch, Tyler and Nova vanish around the bend. Exterior, hillsides and beach. Long, high angle shot, day. Tyler and Nova are already far downstream. There is a striking change in the terrain. The area is still desolated, but some vegetation can be seen on the path side, above the narrow beach, and the river has widened to form a vast tidal basin where it meets the sea. A note on production. Feasible as new location site. This scene should be shot in high
You
tide.
can just go to 410.
Yeah, I realized after I started saying that. Closer angle, panning with Taylor and Nova on horseback. He is alert, sniffing the salt air, seizing up the situation, hearing the cries of birds. He's reins in and looks up. Sky shot, circling birds. Seagulls are soaring overhead. 2 shots, Taylor and Nova on horseback. His expression is expectant, searching. Nova emits a whimper of anticipation, pointing off. Long shot, what they see. A forest atop a distant hillside. The view of the beach below the forest is cut off a rocky promontory in the middle. Just close shot, Nova and Taylor. He smiles at her hopefully.
Yes, Nova, I see it. In my old profession, green meant safe. Green meant go.
A horse mounts off at a trot, camera panning, but they have gone only a short distance when they hear the distant thunder of an explosion. Tyler reins in and looks back. Very long shot, a cloud of smoke. A column of smoke and dust rises from the exploded cave far upstream. Back to Taylor Nova. Frowning with concern, Taylor gazes for a moment at the smoke, then decides this is no time to linger. He digs his heels into the horse's flanks, and they move off at a canter. Riding towards the spits the beach, they are nearing the prairie that blocks their view of the beach beyond. Closer angle, tracking with Taylor Nova. As they round the promontory, the chip of the strange rock formation comes into view. It appears to be jutting from the sea. Reaction shot, Taylor. He reins in momentarily, baffled by what he sees. Then he rides on. The strange formation, as seen by Taylor. An immersed column juts from the beach at a 30-degree angle. We can now see that it is not a rock, but metal. Green metallic tints show through its gray salt-stained surface. As we draw closer to the object, takes an appearance of a massive arm. Its top shaped like a hand holding a torch. Reverse angle. Favoring Taylor. Frowning with consternation, his horse proceeds at a slow walk. Tracking with Taylor what he sees. Near the base of the column where the shore and water meet are a row of metal spikes. From the angle, they look like tank traps. Closer Taylor. Dumbfounded, he slides from the saddle, approaches the spikes. Nova dismounts and follows him.
Oh my god. I'm back. I'm home. All the times. You really finally did it. You maniacs! You blew it up! God damn you! God damn you all to hell!
He falls to his knees, buried his head in his hands. Camera slowly draws back and up to a high-angle shot, disclosing what Taylor has found. Half buried in the sand and washed by the waves is the Statue of Liberty. Fade out. The end.
Woo! Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is Planet of the Apes. This is the Quarantine Theater Company. Good night!
Yay.